Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 13, Dangerous. Then let me wish you, Mr. Linley, a successful venture and return for the two of you. The silver-haired elder, Jelen, laughed calmly. Suddenly, he thought of something and said hurriedly, "Right, Lord Linley, I don't know if you know or not, but once you participate in the planar war, you will only be permitted to depart once this planar war concludes." Linley turned to look at him. "Lord Linley, so you really didn't know?" The silver-haired elder, Jelen, laughed. "This is a rule. You can choose to enter at any time, but everyone who enters, must wait for the war to conclude before leaving. You are not permitted to leave in the middle, nor is it possible for you to leave in the middle. I have to wait 8 centuries. Linley frowned. His original plan had been for him and Bibi to seize every available moment to complete their mission early on, then hurry back. "I'm thinking too highly of myself. How could commanders be easily killed? 800 years, I'll have to just fight for 800 years within then." Linley now understood why so many Lord Prefects, Tartaru's lords, and others weren't willing to enter the planar wars. Even if you rendered military merits, you would have to wait until everything concluded, and even if you didn't attack others, others might attack you. "Boss, let's go on in." Bibi was completely fearless. Linley nodded, then flew with Bibi towards the interspatial gate. 5 meters wide, 10 meters tall, and emanating with that black aura. Linley and Bibi flew through the interspatial gate, and as they did, it was like entering a pool of water. The two disappeared from the wide hall. "I wonder if they'll return alive." Jelen shook his head slightly. When Linley had been in the Yulon continent, he had passed through an interspatial gate to arrive at the necropolis of the God's Plain. But this time, the passage through the interspatial gate was a completely different experience. This interspatial door is actually an extremely long corridor. Linley was rather surprised, while Bibi also stared at their surroundings in surprise. The 5-meter wide, 10-meter high corridor had walls which were covered with flowing streaks of light. Everything seemed so beautiful and dazzling. Linley and Bibi followed the direction of the interspatial corridor, flying towards the front. Linley was stunned. This corridor seems to distort space itself. While flying, Linley had the sense of space being distorted. "Boss, tell me, if I were to attack this corridor, would it collapse?" Bibi said. Linley couldn't help but feel his heart clench, and he gave Bibi a glare. "Bibi, don't cause trouble. If this interspatial corridor really collapses, you and I will be trapped within a region of chaotic space. That would be disastrous." Linley knew very well that even the most powerful of high gods, upon entering a region of chaotic space, might be finished. "I'm just saying." Bibi mumbled. Suddenly, Linley noticed that there was a faint glow coming from the front of the tunnel. We made it." Linley and Bibi immediately exited the tunnel. "Welcome, milords." A voice that was neither humble nor loud rang out. Linley and Bibi turned to look towards the voice before even having a chance to inspect the battlefield. The ground in front of them was dark and gloomy, and standing atop the ground was a large group of people. Linley swept them with his gaze. Hundreds. Only, Linley also noticed the aura from their badges as well now. They were on his side. Only now did Linley let out a sigh of relief. The person who had just spoken was a red-haired, grim-looking woman. She continued, "Milords, is this your first time in the planar battlefield, or have you had previous experiences?" Linley couldn't help but frown. "Milord, please don't be upset." The red-haired, grim-looking woman hurriedly smiled. "We are under orders to guard the interspatial gate that leads to the planar battlefield from the netherworld. Our Lord has instructed us that if there is anyone who is new to the planar battlefield and isn't familiar with it, that his lordship can receive you and also provide you with some information, milords." Linley and Bibi exchanged glances. "Boss, Let's go. What's there to fear? BB sent mentally. Linley, too, felt that given how they were completely unfamiliar with this planar battlefield, it was best to get a better understanding of it. Fine, then. You lead the way. Linley said. Please follow me. The red-haired woman said, then immediately led Linley outwards. Linley and BB, when advancing, carefully applied his senses to his surroundings. When he did, he sighed in astonishment. The gravity in this battlefield is actually even greater than that of the netherworld and the infernal realm. This is the plane with the greatest gravity I have ever seen. In addition, divine sense is restricted to an incredible extent as well. Linley realized that his divine sense was now constrained to a range of just 100 meters or so. My two lords, according to the legends, this battlefield was created jointly by the four overgods. The red-haired woman laughed as she spoke. Even the higher realms, such as the netherworld or the celestial realm, were created by the four overgods separately. This battlefield, in terms of stability, is far more stable than even the higher realms. In this place, it is hard for even commanders to be able to tear open space. Linley couldn't help but feel secretly surprised. The more stable a plane was, the more powerful gravity generally was in it, as well as the restrictive, binding force. Linley glanced at the air. In the air above this plane, there were no stars. Extremely high in the sky, there were some wild, chaotic, multicolored regions of chaotic space. The entire plane was covered in darkness, and only those multicolored patches of chaotic space were able to provide some illumination. This caused the battlefield to always seem dark and gloomy. Hey, what's going on up there? BB spoke out. The red-haired woman laughed. The space above the planar battlefield is very dangerous. As you fly upwards, once you reach a certain height, you will occasionally encounter spatial tears. If you go up even farther, the spatial tears will become more dense, until you enter the region of chaotic space. Thus, when battling, be careful not to let yourself fall into the chaotic space. Linley and BB glanced at each other. It seemed as though the environment in this damnable place was quite vile as well. The battles of the planar wars have one proscription: one cannot fly too high, or too deep into the ground. The red-haired woman said with a calm laugh. If you dig deep into the ground, if you go a bit too deep, you will very possibly encounter more spatial tears. The deeper you go, the more numerous the spatial tears will be. Linley nodded slightly. How troublesome. BB mumbled. While chatting, Linley noticed that the surrounding soldiers were growing more and more numerous. Clearly, they had arrived at a headquarters. The red-haired woman, in a very familiar manner, led Linley to an ordinary tent, then instructed Linley and BB, "My two lords, please wait here for now." Linley and BB were rather puzzled. They couldn't even go close to the tent? But they didn't ask. The red-haired woman said respectfully towards the tent, "Your lordship, just now, two lords have arrived from the netherworld. I brought them over." Oh. A figure strode over from within the tent. This was a muscular bald youth, dressed in a thick black robe. His forehead had a red spot on it. He gave Linley and BB a glance, then said, rather puzzled, "I don't seem to have met you two before." "My boss is the new Redcliffe Lord," BB said directly. Oh. The black-robed, bald youth glanced sideways at Linley, not fully convinced. He said calmly, "Since you have come over, it would appear that this is your first time. I have a map of this planar battlefield here, with descriptions of various areas. You can take a look." As he spoke, he waved his hand, tossing a very thin piece of parchment with black seals atop it. Linley laughed calmly while accepting it. "Thank you. Boss, this baldy seems to be on guard against us," BB said. "In fact, he even maintains some distance from us and doesn't invite us in. We just arrived from the netherworld and are on his side." Why is he so guarded against us? I don't get it. He is indeed guarded, but let's not worry about that. We'll leave soon. Linley, as well, had noticed that this black-robed, bald youth was wary of the two of them. Although he didn't understand why, he still said, "The two of us have some other matters to take care of. We won't tarry here. We're leaving now. Then be careful on your journey." Only now did the black-robed, bald youth reveal a hint of a smile on his face. "Niana, you represent me in escorting these two away." "Yes, your lordship." The red-haired woman bowed. And then, under her guidance, Linley and Bibi left the headquarters. At the borders of the headquarters, the red-haired woman bade farewell to Linley and Bibi. She watched as the two left. How strange. His lordship should have invited them over for the purpose of allying with them. But, his lordship actually didn't recognize them. What a pity, what a pity. For them to enter the netherworld on their own meant that one of the two definitely had to be someone on the Tartaru's lord or lord prefect level. The black-robed bald youth had wanted to show them some hospitality, but unfortunately, he didn't know Linley at all, nor did he offer to work together. Atop the vast earth, Linley and Bibi were currently seated shoulder to shoulder, in the valley of a mountain, flipping through some information which gave a basic introduction to the planar battlefield. This planar battlefield really is small, with a circumference of just 1,000,000 kilometers. However, it is separated by the Stellar River and divided into two parts. Our Divine Darkness plane is on this side of the Stellar River, while the Divine Light plane's armies are on the other side. Linley, after reading, learned many things. Bibi sighed in amazement. "Boss, so the most dangerous places aren't the skies. The most dangerous places are deep underground. And the Stellar River." "Right." Linley nodded as well. "In midair, one could still fly to a certain height. Only after flying even higher than that safe height would one occasionally begin to encounter some spatial tiers, with the higher regions growing increasingly dangerous. Because there was an orderly increase in the danger, everyone was prepared, and they would be careful not to exceed the safe height. But the Stellar River was different. There were very few safe zones in the Stellar River. The vast majority of it was extremely dangerous. This planar battlefield seems like two smaller planes that were joined together. This Stellar River is the line at which the juncture was made. Some juncture points are safe, but the areas around most juncture points are wild, chaotic space." Linley shook his head. The description given by this book seemed to be rather frightening. But Linley and Bibi had never before seen the place, and so weren't able to tell for now how dangerous the Stellar River really was. "We're going to go kill commanders. It seems we have to go past the Stellar River," Bibi murmured. No, Linley shook his head. "Just like us, there must be many commanders who have come to help out. Perhaps there are many who are moving independently as well. They want to kill our people, and so they too will cross the stellar side and arrive here on our side. There's no need for us to go there for now. We'll run into them here." Bibi, hearing this, couldn't help but nod. "Boss, these planar wars have been going on for 100 years now," Bibi suddenly said. "Right, thus, the enemy leaders have sent probably quite a few who have come to this place." Linley looked around himself vigilantly. "Now that we are in an unfamiliar place, we need to constantly be on guard. This is a battlefield, after all, not an arena for challenges. They won't necessarily act openly and honestly. What is there to fear? I want to run into them." Bibi was completely confident. "Then let's head out for now." Linley and Bibi immediately stood up. There were no stars in this planar battlefield. If one wanted to differentiate between the directions, the only way was to use some tall mountains and rivers as landmarks. "Then let's head that way." Linley saw a squat mountain in the distance, and immediately spoke out. Linley and Bibi both carefully made their way through the planar battlefield. Aside from some army camps which seemed quite active, the other places were all extremely quiet. What they didn't know, was if that behind the quiet silence, there was a hidden expert commander or not. Or perhaps an expert on the level of Beirut. BB suddenly turned his head and looked towards the distance. "Boss, there's someone there." Linley stooped down, carefully relying on the grass to block his presence as he stared from afar. Roughly 1,000 meters away, a blurred, black light suddenly appeared and was advancing straight for them. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 14, Ambushed. They had only been flying in the planar battlefield for less than half a day, but ended up actually encountering a lone traveler. Linley knew that ordinary soldiers couldn't possibly be traveling alone. "Move closer," Linley said mentally. What Linley now had to do was, discover if this was someone on their side, or an enemy. Linley and BB quietly advanced through the grass, drawing closer. Not daring to release even the slightest hint of energy, for fear of enemy discovery. Moments later, the distance between the two was reduced to 200 meters. I can't sense the badge aura from him," BB said. Linley couldn't help but feel excited. An enemy. People on the same side would be able to sense their allies' badges. Being unable to sense the badge, meant it was an enemy. Haha, I didn't expect that as soon as we arrived in the planar battlefield, we'd encounter an enemy. It is probably a commander. BB's eyes lit up. "Boss, hand this one to me. I'll get rid of him." "Right." Linley suppressed his excitement. Swoosh. BB suddenly flew into the air. A blurry, enormous illusion of a god-eater rat suddenly appeared behind BB. At this moment, BB, not hesitating at all, used his supreme technique, his innate divine ability, God-eater. But the strange thing was that the figure didn't collapse, it turned to look towards BB. "Boss, I can't sense his divine spark or his soul," BB said frantically. "Right, there's another person nearby. I can sense the aura from his badge. He's not too far from us. He belongs to our side." Right at this moment, someone suddenly appeared in the distance. This person knew that he had been discovered. "The two of you," the gray-robed figure said clearly. "Stop attacking that black-robed figure. That's my death god golem." Golem. BB and Linley were stunned. So it was a golem. No wonder I couldn't sense its aura. No wonder, when BB used his innate divine ability, he failed. Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. The gray-robed man turned and was about to leave, but BB called out, "Hey, don't leave in such a hurry." As he spoke, he flew over. Swoosh. The death god golem immediately flew over, wanting to block BB while speaking in the human language. "What are you intending to do? We are on the same side. Can't I ask a few questions?" BB stared at the death god golem. The grey-robed figure himself was already far away. The death god golem he left behind naturally wasn't something he was worried for. Even if he lost it, that just meant he had one less golem. "The two of you," the death god golem said calmly. "How do I know if you are on my side? Perhaps the two of you killed some ordinary soldiers of my side, and then bound the badges with blood and used them to disguise yourselves. Who can be certain as to whether or not you two are fakes?" Linley and BB were stunned. It was possible to be imposters? But when he thought about it carefully, it made sense. All they had to do was come up with a way to kill an ordinary soldier, then remove their own badge before binding an enemy badge. Thusly done, they would have a disguise. Once the planar war ended, they could simply put their own badges back on. Linley and BB hadn't thought of this yet. Even if you aren't imposters, people on the same side can still kill each other. The death god golem said, then left. Linley and BB didn't try to stop the death god golem. "Boss, I'm starting to understand why that allied camp commander was so wary of us," BB said. He was just like that previous person, afraid we would act against him. BB also understand that it wasn't that they were afraid of the two of them, rather, they couldn't be bothered to kill people on the same side. This was because even in success, there would be no military merits gained. But in failure, one's life would be lost. Naturally, the grey-robed man had chosen to leave. He was afraid we'd kill him. Linley said helplessly. But I won't gain any military merits for killing him. Oh, wait. Linley had a sudden thought, and he finally understood why it was possible for people on the same side to want to fight each other. BB looked at Linley, puzzled. People on the same side might kill each other as well. Linley sighed emotionally. How can that be? BB didn't understand. It's simple. Two people who are close friends. One enters the side of the divine darkness plane, the other enters the side of the divine light plane. For example, BB, you and I might be located in opposing camps. I'll kill people on my side and obtain red badges, which are useless to me, but I can give them to you. And when you kill someone on your side and acquire a golden badge, you can give it to me to use. Linley smiled bitterly. BB now understood as well. The Lord Prefects, Tartaru's lords, and others who were supreme amongst high gods had many friends at the same level. For example, Baruch, he might even have friends of the same level in the celestial realm. They absolutely could join different camps and use this strategy. Thus, we can't trust people on our side, unless we know them well. Linley said with resignation. No wonder the black-robed, bald youth, upon realizing that he didn't recognize Linley, immediately had Linley leave. It seems we need to be careful as well. BB pursed his lips. Even if we encounter allies, we can't be too careless. Right. Linley, too, began to feel how dangerous these planar wars were. Aside from true friends, outsiders were not to be trusted. And the status imparted by a badge might not be true. Just now, that fellow was quite clever to use a death god golem as bait. BB said with a chortle. Boss, we can do this also. Nobody, regardless of the side, will be able to sense the aura of a badge on a death god golem. They'll take the golem to be an enemy and ambush it. We'll hide nearby and counter-ambush them instead. Linley couldn't help but laugh. This was indeed a good method. The planar battlefield was 1,000,000 kilometers in diameter. If one flew at high speed, it wasn't a very long distance, but in this sort of place, where attacks and battles occurred in secret, in such a large area, the few dozen or a few hundred commanders would be like drops of water in the sea. If they were hidden somewhere, it would be very hard to find them. Within a mountain cavern. Linley and BB were within the cavern, while each of them also controlled a death god golem, flying not too far away from them. We encountered a person when we first entered the planar battlefield, but now it's been another month, and we haven't encountered anyone. BB mumbled. Based on what you said, boss, we have to be careful even when just traveling around. This sort of slow, plodding pace, how long is it going to take for us to reach the Stellar River? Don't be impatient. Linley laughed as he spoke. He was very patient. It is possible for battles to occur between commanders in any location here in the planar battlefield. We don't need to run around wildly. Doing so would be very dangerous, and the chances of encountering someone isn't that high either. If we occasionally set up an ambush, our chances might be higher. But if everyone is waiting in ambush, then nobody will encounter anybody. BB rebutted. That's why we'll advance a little bit every few months, changing every so often. Linley said calmly. We have 8 centuries. Plenty of time. What was most critical in a place like this planar battlefield was patience. Whoever became impatient and revealed their traces would most likely be observed by others, which would make things dangerous. Linley knew how much power he had. A commander specialized in soul attacks would make things tough for him. And, most commander-level experts were skilled in soul attacks. If you aren't able to keep waiting, you start training. Linley said with a laugh. Got it? BB pursed his lips. Linley, too, had his true body in a state of maximum vigilance, while his divine clones were focused on training. Who amongst the commanders weren't elites? In addition, quite a few of the commanders had been in the planar battlefield before. All of them had their own strategies. Linley's cautious, guarded approach produced no results in the first 3 months. Although they did encounter one person, that person was on their side as well, and so Linley and BB didn't attack. Let's change places. Most likely, there are very few enemy commanders who will pass through this place. Boss, you should have made this decision long ago. As I see it, let's go to the other side of the Stellar River. I imagine that the enemy camp must have quite a few enemy commanders. After having waited for 3 months, in the end, Linley still decided to leave this mountain cave. That very day, Linley and BB slept away, advancing forward towards the Stellar Sea. Within a squat but large mountain, there was actually a spacious room. A violet-robed, black-haired man was currently seated in the meditative position, while 3 people were seated next to him. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the stairs below. Bowing, he said, "My lord, our people outside have discovered the forces of the divine plane of darkness. One is a youth, while the other is a youngster. Master, these 2 people aren't in the documents you provided." "Oh, strangers." The violet-robed, black-haired man opened his eyes, a hint of violet light flashing through them. "Yes, master." The figure bowed. "Very good. It's time to go hunting." The violet-robed, black-haired man's body swayed, then disappeared from the secret room. In the planar battlefield, Linley wanted to ambush others, but others wanted to ambush Linley as well. It all came down to whose detection skills were better, whose stealth skills were better, whose strategies were better. This was Linley and BB's first time in the planar battlefield. They had too few experiences to rely upon, and so it really was quite hard for them to attempt to ambush others. But now, they had been locked onto by others. "Boss, which place should we set up camp?" "How about let's head directly to the side of the Stellar Sea, right over there. Humph, if someone comes over, we'll go fight them." BB sent mentally. He had no hesitation in his eyes, rather, he had a hint of excitement. "If we just set up camp by the river, we'll be treated by others as a punching bag." Linley's forehead suddenly creased. "What is it?" BB said, puzzled. Swoosh. Linley suddenly turned his head, only to see a blurry, translucent white arrow instantly arrive in front of him. Linley's first reaction was rumble. An earthen yellow light exploded forth from his body, instantly encapsulating a region of 1,000 meters. This was Linley's supreme technique, Blackstone Space. The direction of the gravity was towards Linley. Crunch. The translucent white arrow entered his body. The speed was too fast. Linley wasn't able to dodge at all. "BB, kill that assailant." Linley only had the chance to give this single shout through divine sense, then wholeheartedly focused on defending against the soul attack. Bang! The translucent arrow continued to inexorably strike towards Linley's soul, but when it smashed against the translucent scaled membrane, it instantly shattered, transforming into white specks of light. These specks of light instantly discovered that the defensive power at the damaged hole was weaker, and immediately attacked there. Crackle, Linley's azure spiritual energy transformed into rays of invisible sword ripples, repeatedly smashing against the white spots of light. "Who is this?" "Rice Gem. The appearance is completely off, but the gravity is so strong, fortunately, I started far away." The violet figure was originally within a few hundred meters of Linley when he launched his ambush. If he had been closer, Linley and BB would have discovered him. Although Linley's Blackstone Space was set up to cover a large distance, the violet-robed figure was very fast. While resisting the power of the gravity, he managed to flee the Blackstone space region. But as he fled from the region, BB reached a distance of just 200 or 300 meters from him. Shkree! The enraged BB once more used his innate divine ability. The violet-robed man, who had continuously paid attention to the space behind him, was terrified upon seeing the enormous phantom of a god-eater rat. Just now, that was Rice Gem's supreme technique, but this one is Baruch's. The violet-robed man's body suddenly exploded with white light. It was Sovereign's might. His speed instantly increased to a new limit. Rumble. The strange ripples of BB's innate divine ability flew towards him at high speed. Damn it, I let him get away. BB said discontentedly. His innate divine ability was executed through relying on his spiritual energy, and there was a process of waves, as well as a distance limit. BB had been 200 or 300 meters away to begin with. Given that in this moment of crisis, the enemy had also used up a drop of Sovereign's might to flee at full speed, the enemy had managed to put enough distance between them. What is going on? Those two young strangers, one actually had Rice Gem's supreme technique, while the other had Baruch's supreme technique. What incredibly bad luck. Today, Una very nearly died in their hands. I didn't get anything, but ended up using a drop of Sovereign's might. Geez. The violet-robed man felt extremely discontent as well. Not good, as my Sovereign's might continues to leak outwards, it'll definitely attract the attention of other commanders. Terrible, terrible. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 15, A Choice. BB was still staring unhappily towards the direction in which the violet-robed man had ran. Unfortunately, the violet-robed man's speed was normally above his to begin with. After using Sovereign's might, he vastly outstripped BB. BB could do nothing besides just watch as the man fled. If it hadn't been for the fact that he was slower, BB wouldn't have used his innate divine ability at the earlier distance of 200 or 300 meters. Just consider yourself lucky. BB glanced warily at the surrounding area, then turned and shot back towards Linley like an arrow. Boss, are you all right? BB asked, worried. Linley opened his eyes and glanced at the surrounding area. The battle just now might have drawn the attention of others. BB, let's move first and talk later. Amongst the commanders of the planar battlefield, Linley could only be considered a low-level one, while BB at most would be a mid-level one. The two weren't yet powerful enough to be able to openly welcome challenges from others. Swoosh. The two transformed into blurs, disappearing from the skies. Moments after they left, a black-robed figure suddenly appeared in midair. It paused here for a moment, glanced around, and then left. In the planar battlefield, only high-ranking commanders would dare to fly in the air, as they were confident in being able to fight any opponent. After all, it was easy for people on the ground to see those of them in midair. For example, Linley and BB only moved about on the ground. After hiding in a deep cave, Linley and BB let out sighs of relief. BB, you weren't able to catch him. Linley said with a laugh. Nope. That fellow was hidden really far away. Boss, when you spread out your Blackstone space, he quickly escaped from it. I used my innate divine ability, but I wasn't able to reach him with it in time. BB said unhappily. That fellow really is a bastard. He hid so far away when he attacked. He didn't even dare to draw too close. Linley shook his head. This is the planar battlefield, not a dueling ground. Everyone's strategies are different. In addition, there are more experts here than just those of the Divine Darkness plane and Divine Light plane. Even supreme experts from other planes have decided to come in support of one side. Thus, the experts here are from throughout the 4 higher realms and the 7 divine planes. This is a terrifying battleground. It makes sense for everyone to be so cautious. BB felt the pressure now, as well. Aside from the planar battlefield, what other place could possibly attract these supreme experts to all gather in one place and think of ways to kill each other? I wonder how many commanders are here. BB mumbled. As I see it, the Divine Darkness Plane and Divine Light Plane each have at most 20 or 30 commanders. The other planes, all combined, should have more. If 10 come from each higher realm and from each divine plane, more than 100 would be present. Linley sighed. In addition, that's a conservative estimate. Aside from commanders, there are some other experts who previously were Lord Prefects or regional lords who might have retired long ago, but who have only grown in power. They might come as well. BB nodded. Indeed, those people came in as ordinary soldiers. For example, Linley and BB. BB was here as an ordinary soldier, but in terms of power, was BB weak? It was the same principle. In the planar battlefield, there were perhaps only 100 or so true commanders, but there were more who held commander-level power. Over the course of countless years, quite a few supreme experts had given up their positions, possibly because they knew that they were weaker than their challengers. Some couldn't be bothered to fight over power, and so gave up their positions. As for others, well, it wasn't good to underestimate anyone. Only very few dare to act arrogantly in the planar wars. Linley shook his head and laughed. Those who were arrogant without sufficient strength died early on. The only people who dared to be arrogant now were the likes of Dunnington. Thus, that person who attacked me can be considered to have used an excellent method. If the first blow was unsuccessful, immediately flee. Too diabolical. BB muttered. It is diabolical, but it is also safe. Linley took a deep breath. BB, as I see it, we should use his method in seeking out targets. We'll launch sneak attacks, and if we fail, immediately leave without any hesitation. Heh, it feels bad being ambushed by others, but pretty great ambushing them. BB's eyes lit up. Linley laughed resignedly. Who wanted to be ambushed? But there was nothing they could do. If they fought openly, they would die upon encountering more powerful experts. When ambushing, the two of us will work jointly. Linley had been planning this on the way back. He immediately said, when we find a target, BB, use your innate divine ability, God-Aider. I'll immediately execute a material attack. There are very few people capable of blocking my Mirage Sword. Linley was very confident. BB's God-Aider ability acted on a person's soul and divine spark, while Linley used material attacks. BB, against what sort of person would your God-Aider ability fail? Linley asked. He had to know the power of BB's God-Aider ability in order to plan things out. Oh. Grandpa mentioned a few things before. Those who are at the Paragon level should be able to resist my innate divine ability. BB said. Linley nodded. Anyone else? Those who have soul-protecting sovereign artifacts should be able to block as well. BB said, then began to laugh. But don't worry. Very few people have sovereign artifacts. Most likely only a portion of commanders have sovereign artifacts, which are divided into 3 types. There are very few soul-protecting sovereign artifacts, and also very few people in possession of them. Linley wasn't too surprised by BB's response. Soul-protecting sovereign artifacts were made by sovereigns to protect their own souls. It was natural that an artifact which a sovereign used to protect his own soul would be effective against BB's technique. BB, if the enemy uses sovereign's might, would he be able to block it? Linley asked. This was the real question which he cared about. Heh, someone who uses sovereign's might, won't be able to block me. BB said confidently. My innate divine ability, God-Aider, will go through any possible opening. Unless the soul protection is completely flawless, as soon as it encounters any opening, it will seep through, locking onto the soul and divine spark. Linley nodded slightly. It seems that it would be hard for me to block this technique as well. Linley laughed. Heh heh. BB nodded smugly. Unless, boss, you completely repair that soul-protecting sovereign artifact. Completely repairing it, how difficult a task it is. Linley laughed in response. During the course of this conversation, Linley had come to understand how terrifying BB's innate divine ability truly was. Any commander who was not a paragon or who did not possess a soul-protecting sovereign artifact, upon encountering this technique, would probably find it hard to escape. The only method was to do what that violet-robed man had done, immediately pull away. Once one was attacked within the range of the technique, one would be finished. Amongst the commanders, only a portion of them possess sovereign artifacts. Even fewer have soul-protecting sovereign artifacts. Linley was filled with confidence. BB, just by relying on this technique, should be able to deal with the vast majority of commanders. No wonder Baruch said that by relying on this technique, BB's attack power would be close to Baruch's own. Linley was already filled with confidence regarding the planar battlefield. After all, it wasn't just BB who had a supreme technique. Linley's Blackstone space and innate divine ability, Dragon Roar, when combined with his godly weapon Mirage, this was also a very frightening triple threat. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. Within the cave? Boss, it's been 2 more months. We only found a single person, and it was someone on our side. This rate is really low. BB was rather impatient. They wanted to hunt enemy commanders, but they hadn't even found any targets. They had power stored up but nowhere to spend it. Linley nodded. BB, there should be enemies on this side of the Stellar River as well. But although they have come over, all of them are extremely careful. Finding them is very hard. As I see it, let's go straight to their base. Boss, are you saying? BB's eyes lit up. Pass through the Stellar River and go to the other side. The planar battlefield didn't have a sun, a moon, or stars. Upon raising one's head, all one would see was the multicolored patches of chaotic space high in the skies. Although it was beautiful, it was also very dangerous. The only reason the battlefield had any light at all and wasn't steeped in utter darkness was because of the chaotic space high up above. The Stellar River. It divided the battlefield into 2 sides, and was one of the danger zones of the planar battlefield. Boss, so this is the Stellar River? How can you call this a river? BB and Linley were currently standing amidst the grass, staring towards the distant Stellar River. The Stellar River was extremely long. According to the descriptions on the map, it divided the entire planar battlefield in 2, and so naturally it was 1,000,000 kilometers in length. There was no way one would be able to see to the end of it with the naked eye. And its width? It must be 1,000 kilometers wide. Linley looked towards it. The Stellar River was 1,000 kilometers wide. At a glance, it seemed incomparably brilliant and beautiful. But upon taking a closer look, they discovered that the brilliance wasn't generated from river water. Rather, it was from countless spatial flows. The Stellar River was filled with countless spatial tiers, which could be seen everywhere. The spatial tiers were so common that they formed into a thick, dense river, a river completely formed from chaotic spatial tiers. How are we supposed to go past this damn place? BB said with a frown. Linley looked carefully as well. The number of spatial tiers that appeared and disappeared here were innumerable. But of course, given that it was 1,000 kilometers wide, there were some safe zones as well. There were some meteors, mountains, and hills that floated throughout the Stellar River. They just hovered there. Clearly, the regions in which they resided had no spatial tiers. However, they were in the center of this river. Linley couldn't just teleport there. The Stellar River has 2 wide corridors. Linley said. Only, these 2 corridors both have army headquarters stationed at each end and are under guard. Our side isn't so bad, our people guard it and won't attack us. But if we pass through the wide corridor to reach the other end, we will suffer enemy attacks. The two sides of the planar battlefield were actually connected to each other solely through those two corridors. Boss, are we really going to? BB raised an eyebrow. Right? All we can do is find a safe corridor through the regions of chaotic space and spatial tiers. Linley looked forward carefully as he spoke. BB, some places have no spatial tiers. Let's look carefully for them. No other choices. BB mumbled. Linley and BB both focused their attention on the Stellar River. Linley quickly discovered that within the Stellar River, there were some places with neither spatial tiers nor chaotic space. By connecting these safe spaces, a sinuous pathway could be traversed. What Linley had to do was to find a small pathway that would allow him to reach the other side. Boss, look over there. It seems that place is passable. BB pointed and said. However, I can only see to a distance of a few hundred kilometers. It gets blurry after that. The small spatial tiers can't be seen clearly past that distance. Linley gave it a look, then shook his head. Doesn't work. The path that I found is the same, there's no way to be certain as to whether or not the latter half is passable. How about this, BB, let's head to those floating boulders in the center. Once we reach those spaces, we'll look for a path that reaches the opposite shores. All right. BB had no options as well. Then let's follow that path. It just happens to lead to the millstone-like boulder over there in the center. Linley immediately decided. Linley and BB, while paying attention to their surroundings, transformed into two rays of light, quickly advancing to the sides of the stellar sea. But upon reaching the sides of the stellar sea, Linley and BB felt pressure from what they were going to do. The river path they had selected was filled with countless spatial tiers above and below it, as well as regions of chaotic space. Let's go. Linley sent. Linley and BB instantly passed through the stellar river. The two agilely and nimbly threaded their way through, moving up, down, left, and right at high speed, avoiding one dangerous region after another. At this moment, it was as though Linley and BB were dancing atop the blade of a knife. The situation was extremely dangerous. But at their level, their self-control was at a very high level as well. They didn't make a single error in any of their movements. Sometimes, they all but pressed against those spatial tiers as they moved past them, but they still managed to dodge one danger after another. Up ahead. Linley said, delighted. Up ahead, there was an enormous floating boulder that was tens of meters wide. It hovered there, and despite having been there for so long, there were no cracks on it. Clearly, this region didn't have much danger. Swoosh. Swoosh. Linley and BB advanced, one up ahead, one behind. They landed on the surface of the millstone-like boulder. Whew. Only now did Linley let out a sigh of relief. He looked at his surroundings. The surrounding area was filled with spatial tiers and chaotic space. Linley couldn't help but say with a laugh, BB. I feel as though we are back in the Yulon continent, in the secret room below Dragonblood Castle. However, that secret room had that membrane which blocked out the spatial tiers and the chaotic space. Now, however, we don't have any protection. Boss, BB suddenly said. Do you think there might be commanders hidden within the central boulders of the Stellar Sea? Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 16, Murderous Blows. In the center of the Stellar River. Atop the giant, millstone-like floating boulder. Linley and BB were standing there. If we were to be surrounded and attacked, it would be dangerous. BB looked at their surroundings. Hiding around the central boulders of the Stellar River. Linley couldn't help but look at the surrounding areas, then laughed. BB, stop imagining things. I think no commander would be willing to battle within the center of the Stellar Sea. If you aren't careful, you'll immediately fall into the spatial tiers or the chaotic space, and be finished. Oh. Makes sense. BB couldn't help but rub his nose and chortle. Enough. If we stay here in the center of the stellar river, we'll easily be discovered. Let's hurry up and find a way out and arrive at the opposite side in a hurry. Linley said quickly. Right. BB also began to immediately inspect the surrounding spatial tiers and chaotic space. If someone from the other side was paying attention to the center of the stellar river, Linley and BB would be easily discovered. No, this route doesn't work either. Linley shook his head, negating another pathway he had just discovered. Sometimes, a pathway seemed promising, but after 100 meters, spatial tiers and chaotic space completely blocked it off, providing no chances for advancing. Linley and BB continued to search rapidly. Boss, I found a path. BB said in surprised delight. Oh? Which one? Linley couldn't help but feel delighted. Right over here. Look, follow this line, then there, take a big turn. The route after that is fairly clear. BB said excitedly. Linley's gaze quickly swept down and followed the route, all the way to the other end. He wanted to make sure this route was passable. Let's go. Linley immediately gave the order. Tarrying too long in the center of the stellar river would make it easy for those on the other side to find them. Generally speaking, the easiest time for others to discover and ambush you would be during the process of traveling from one shore to another. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two figures flashed through the stellar sea like bolts of lightning, occasionally curving and occasionally shooting forward, then curving again, in short, constantly dodging past one dangerous region after another. Captain, look, over there. Two people. On the other side of the shore, a group of soldiers had discovered Linley and BB, advancing at high speed. Just two of them. The leader, a silver-haired, sharp-eared, callous-looking youth looked over, then gave the instructions. These two definitely are commanders, or perhaps just one of them is. Let's immediately move out, while at the same time, second bro, you go make the report to the Lord Commander. Should we let them go, or should we attack? Understood. A figure left, flying at high speed. Linley and BB had no idea that there was a camp located right at the part of the shore they had selected as their destination. Unfortunately, the camp was blocked by a small hill. And so Linley and BB didn't discover it at all. Linley and BB's attention was completely focused on the dangerous path they were traversing, and didn't realize at all that people in the distance were staring at them. My brothers, all of you, step back. Don't fight head on. The few dozen of us present won't be able to stop them. The silver-haired, sharp-eared youth instructed. When the main army arrives or the Lord Commander arrives, then we'll see. They were nothing more than a small patrol of the camp, and were more than 10 kilometers away from the headquarters. They were no fools. The few dozen of them, go fight head-on against a commander-level expert? That would be suicide. If there were hundreds or 1,000 of them present, then they might be confident. They've almost arrived. The soldiers stared. They had retreated long ago, drawing close to the tall grass close to the hill next to the headquarters. The commander orders them to be killed. The order from the commander came. Brothers, let's go. The silver-haired, sharp-eared youth immediately shouted. It wasn't just them, now, a large number of people had arrived from the main camp as well. Rumble. The soldiers of the camp located in other areas had all come, and they too charged forward, attacking alongside the patrols. There were more than 1,000 attacking soldiers. Swoosh! Swoosh! Linley and BB landed on the shore, moving lightning fast. Boss, there are people here. Many. BB said, stunned. Linley now noticed as well that in the distant grassy area, a large number of figures had suddenly emerged and were moving towards them at high speed. At the same time, more than 10 meters away, in the distance, there was a short tent, with other tents blocked by the hill. Not good. This is an enemy camp. We need to hurry and leave. Linley didn't dare to hesitate, immediately fleeing alongside Bibi. Attack. The order came. There was nothing they could do. In terms of speed, these soldiers couldn't compete with Linley and Bibi. If this continued, the distance would only grow greater and greater. It was better to immediately attack. With that order, instantly. Rumble. Boom. All sorts of rays of light, translucent soul attacks, and other things shot forward at high speed, traversing the kilometers of distance and attacking Linley and Bibi. But Linley and Bibi fled very quickly as well. Bang. Bang. The various attacks rained down, covering Linley and Bibi. Multiple attacks landed on Linley and Bibi's bodies. Within the exploding sounds, Linley and Bibi continued to flee quickly, soon disappearing from the field of vision of the pursuing soldiers. Commander. The 1,000 soldiers suddenly all turned and bowed towards a single person. This person was a man with long golden hair as brilliant as the sun, a face that was as white and pure as a woman's, and who was dressed in a long golden robe. He casually glanced at them. You let them escape. We didn't catch up to them. The military officer who gave the order to attack said. If you didn't catch up to them, then forget it. We were already quite lucky to even encounter them, given the close distance to the stellar sea and how fast commanders move. If we were able to so easily kill 1 or 2 commanders, then my luck would have been too great. Enough, let's return. The golden-haired commander laughed calmly as he gave his orders. In a patch of grass, Linley and Bibi were hiding. What bad luck. Bibi twisted his lips. Boss, you all right? I'm fine. Just 4 material attacks landed on me, along with 1 soul attack. There wasn't much of an impact. Linley felt they were unlucky as well. The stellar river was 1,000,000 kilometers long. They had randomly chosen a place to come over, but who would have imagined that the opposite side would have a camp? Linley then laughed. Still, we at least made it safely to the enemy side. Right. Bibi's eyes lit up. Boss, are we going to search for our target now? Let's start to set up camp. I imagine on this side, things will be much better than at our side. Linley and Bibi set up the same camping strategy they had on the other side. They dug a fairly shallow hole into the ground, then calmly began to train in the hole. At the same time, they each controlled a death god golem, which began to sneak around, with the goal of attracting nearby commanders. A muscular man dressed in short sleeves and long trousers who was 3 meters tall was currently stealthily moving forward. He had a head of golden, lion-like hair, an upwards hooked nose, and a large mouth. His golden eyes paid constant attention to the surrounding areas, searching for a target. Oh! The golden-haired man's eyes lit up. He saw that in the distance, there was a figure that was stealthily advancing. He couldn't help but let a huge smile appear on his face. I didn't expect I'd actually encounter one. Right. No badge or an enemy. The golden-haired man immediately shot forward as though he were a bolt of lightning. Right at this moment, that figure just so happened to turn, spying the golden-haired man charging at him. Swoosh. Not hesitating at all, the figure immediately fled. Fleeing? But your speed is inferior to mine. The golden-haired man's eyes lit up. In the underground cave, Linley and Bibi were quietly seated in the meditative posture. Boss, we have a target. He's chasing after the death god golem I am controlling. Bibi suddenly opened his eyes. Linley, excited, opened his eyes as well. The encounter rate is much higher on the enemy side. This is only the 7th day, but we've found someone. Let's hurry up and move out. Linley and Bibi didn't hesitate at all, immediately moving out from underground. If the enemy discovered the target was just a death god golem, he would definitely know that it was just bait, making the chances of their ambush being successful much lower. Linley and Bibi had been controlling the death god golems at a close distance. Because they were keeping them close, that made it easier to control them, and it was currently fleeing towards the two of them. Within the grass, Linley and Bibi lay there in wait, staring at the two distant, running figures. The death god golem was a high god artifact level death god golem, and it was still quite fast. However, normally speaking, a commander level expert should be far faster than this death god golem. This golden-haired fellow isn't that fast. Linley immediately came to this judgment. Boss, I don't sense any aura from his badge. He should be an enemy. Bibi said, delighted. Linley's eyes lit up as well. Good heavens. They had lain in wait for half a year on their own side without anything to show for it, but after having waited here for just 7 days, they had encountered an enemy. The efficiency rate here really was much higher. Bibi, prepare to act. Linley sent mentally. Don't worry. Boss. Bibi grew excited as well. Linley and Bibi just watched as the golden-haired man continued to chase after the death god golem. Finally, the golden-haired man caught up to it. The muscular man, his head wreathed in large amounts of golden hair, let out a large howl as he swept forward with his right palm. With that blow, space itself rippled as though space-time was water. So powerful. The faces of Linley and Bibi changed. The stability of the planar battlefield was far greater than even the higher planes. The death god golem struck back as well. Their fists met. Bang. The death god golem's right arm immediately transformed into shattered pieces, while the entire body then began to tremble before immediately collapsing. This scene badly startled Linley and Bibi. To break through a high god artifact sword with a punch wasn't frightening, however, when this golden-haired man had broken the death god golem's arm, then somehow caused a powerful vibration that made the entire death god golem collapse. This sort of attack was simply too awe-inspiring. The golden-haired man stared. There was no divine spark on the ground, nor any badge. Not good. The golden-haired man suddenly raised his head. He saw that 100 meters away, an enormous god-eater rat phantom had suddenly appeared in midair. A youth was staring at him coldly. Rumble, a strange ripple instantly spread out. The golden-haired man wasn't able to dodge at all, and was immediately struck by it. A strange energy pressed down on his mind. Innate divine ability, God-Eater. Rumble, an earthen yellow light instantly vibrated outwards, pressing down on the golden-haired man. Swish. An azure golden blur shot forward as well. Based on Linley and Bibi's plans, regardless of whether or not Bibi's technique succeeded, Linley would still use his most powerful sword attack in that moment. Someone capable of blocking God-Eater wouldn't necessarily be able to block Linley's sword. Roar. The golden-haired man let out an angry roar. He's actually still alive. Bibi couldn't help but curse to himself. The enemy was either a high god paragon or possessed a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. The enemy camp they had encountered when they had just arrived had been a thorny problem, and now here came another one. What horrible luck. Swish. The invisible Godspark sword, Mirage, shot out, firmament splitter. This most powerful technique was executed through the invisible Mirage sword, and the sword pierced straight towards the man's forehead. Bastard. The golden-haired man sensed the sharp aura and hurriedly moved his head aside to dodge. Slash. Mirage stabbed directly into the right side of the golden-haired man's face, but as it stabbed down, with a crackle sound, Mirage just barely managed to cut through the golden-haired man's face, and it was unable to go any further. What sort of defense is this? Linley was stupefied. Aside from Bibi and Baruch, Linley had never before encountered such powerful, terrifying defense. Most likely, even Patriarch Gislason of the Azure Dragon clan was far inferior. His most powerful sword attack was aimed at the enemy's face, not the enemy's fist. He had only been able to cut slightly into the skin of the face. This was too ridiculous. Die. The golden-haired man let out a bellow, smashing out at Linley with an angry fist. Linley, terrified, retreated with explosive speed. That attack just now had been launched from just half a meter away from Linley. However, just as Linley thought he had dodged it, a golden yellow light suddenly shot out from the golden-haired man's fist. As it shot out, it actually caused space itself to tremble. There was no way to dodge. Boom. The golden light struck Linley on his chest, and with a boom sound, it shot straight through Linley's chest, creating a large, fist-sized hole within it. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 17, Hammers. His material attack is actually this powerful. Linley felt stunned in his heart. Even the former Redcliffe Lord's material attack wasn't as monstrous as this. An attack passing through empty space is actually able to penetrate my body. Linley was very confident in the defense of his dragon form, but today, this punch had stunned him. That man's eyes were filled with rage, and his messy golden hair began to tremble. You dare to injure me, Hammers. Die. A deep voice echoed in Linley's mind, and the golden-haired man's right leg lashed out. That thick right leg was flowing with a golden yellow light. As it lashed out, it created ripples in space, as though it were moving through water. The power of this kick was so great that even before it reached Linley, Linley already had a bad feeling. Given the power of that fist, which didn't even directly hit me, just passed through the air, if I'm hit by this kick. Linley didn't dare to hesitate. Blackstone space, repulsive force. Linley wielded, and a powerful repulsive force was applied to the terrifyingly powerful body of that Hammers. At the same time, with a whap sound, Linley's whip-like draconic tail slapped the ground hard, borrowing the counter-force to retreat hurriedly. Bang! This kick of Hammers missed. Boom! Although it missed, a surge of golden ripples still shot out from his leg, shooting towards Linley. This material attack was simply too fast. It wasn't bound by the Blackstone space, and its speed vastly outstripped Linley's fleeing speed. However, live and learn, after having suffered last time, Linley was prepared this time. Linley's Godspark sword, Mirage, unhurriedly swung out to meet it. It seemed to move slowly but was actually fast. The flat of Mirage struck directly against the golden yellow ripple. Bang! A powerful collision. Mirage was knocked backwards, slapping against Linley's body, while Linley's sword-wielding right arm actually had its draconic scales shatter and blood leak through. Swoosh! Linley once more borrowed the counter-force to retreat. What a monster! Linley cursed in his heart. The power of kick, when passing through a Godspark weapon, is capable of shattering my draconic scales. So in the planes of the universe, there is someone besides Baruch who is so monstrous. Previously, Linley had seen Baruch use his bare hands to stop a sovereign artifact. One could imagine how much strength that took. But it seemed as though this golden-haired man was about the same. The distant BB's eyes instantly grew wide and round. Not hesitating at all, he transformed into a blur, shooting towards the golden-haired warrior while sending mentally in a frantic voice, "Boss, hurry and flee, I'll block him. BB, don't waste time, let's hurry up and leave. You won't be able to block him." Linley hurriedly sent back. At the same time, Linley increased his fleeing speed. BB had no choice but to follow Linley in fleeing. You want to escape? The golden-haired man stared furiously at the two fleeing figures, then violently stomped forward. Bang! Bang! Every single step was like a meteor striking the ground, and the golden-haired man's speed thus reached his limit as he pursued and attacked towards the fleeing Linley and BB. "Boss, that big fellow is in pursuit." BB called out in alarm. "He's actually this fast." Linley glanced backwards. Originally, when the golden-haired man had been in pursuit of the death god golem, he hadn't been this fast. Clearly, This person called Hammers was utterly enraged now. It's fine. Once he enters my Blackstone space, he won't be able to catch up to us. Linley said with certainty. Indeed. As soon as the golden-haired man entered the Blackstone space region, he sensed a powerful repulsive force. Speed was never his forte to begin with, and although when going all out, he could compare to Linley and BB, as soon as he entered the Blackstone space region, he became vastly inferior to Linley and BB. Linley and BB were fleeing in front, hurriedly pulling away. This caused the golden-haired man to once more escape the Blackstone space, and as soon as he did, his speed increased again, allowing him to close in on them once more. In short, the two sides maintained a distance of roughly 500 meters. Boss, that big fellow keeps chasing us. What should we do? BB said frantically. Can it be that we will have to use Sovereign's might? Not for now. Linley didn't want to waste a drop of Sovereign's might. The situation wasn't critical yet. BB, within a few hundred meters, this Hammers is able to clearly see us. How about this? We will immediately enter the ground and tunnel downwards. He won't be able to see us, and will probably find it hard to find us. Linley sent mentally. Unless the situation was life-threatening, Linley wouldn't easily use up his Sovereign's might. Enter the ground? Fine. BB agreed. The two of you, don't even think of escaping. The angry bellows continued to echo and shake the world. This big idiot. Isn't he afraid of attracting attention, by bellowing like this? BB couldn't help but sent angrily. BB, I imagine this Hammers really isn't afraid of others coming. He didn't even fear your God-Ader ability. He should have a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. And look at his material defense. This is absolutely an opponent who has no weaknesses. His only weakness, actually, is that he has no long-distance attacks and no soul attacks. Enough, let's go underground. Linley and BB, in virtually the same instant, with a swoosh dove underground. Humph, fleeing underground. The yellow-haired man let out a cold laugh. And then, the yellow-haired man lifted up his thick leg, viciously stamping on the ground. With a thunderous sound, the ground trembled and a ray of golden light rippled out from his leg and entered the ground, spreading outwards in every direction. Over there. The burly golden-haired man's eyes lit up. He moved towards the left in hot pursuit, then lifted his feet up once again and viciously stomped on the ground. That golden light once more entered the ground and rippled out. Although by fleeing underground, one couldn't be seen, in terms of fleeing speed, the blocking dirt naturally made it slower than fleeing above ground. What sort of weird technique is this? BB could clearly sense how the golden energy ripples were like ripples of water, with each ripple landing on himself and Linley. However, the energy of these ripples didn't possess much power to harm. Bang! A violent tremor came from above. This fellow knows where we are. Linley said frantically. There's no way to escape his pursuit from underground. Boss, what should we do? BB said frantically. There's one final option. If this method doesn't work, then we'll just have to use up our Sovereign's might. Right at this moment, a powerful golden ripple shot downwards, charging straight through the obstructing dirt. Not good. Linley's face changed. Bang. BB viciously threw a punch straight towards it. BB, are you all right? Linley was rather nervous. I'm fine. This attack was pretty strong though, my fist feels numb. But I'm not injured. BB sent back. Linley, hearing this, let out a sigh of relief, and then a sigh of praise. BB's defense really was terrifying, comparable to or exceeding the hardness of a God's Park weapon. BB, upon reaching the high God level, had only been injured by the abyssal fruit tree sovereign. Others weren't even able to scratch BB's skin. Unfortunately, BB's attack power was too weak, inferior to even Linley's. It was only because of his innate divine ability that he was able to threaten commander-level experts. "BB, let's go above ground together," Linley said hurriedly. That expert named Hemmers clearly had a method to determine where they were. If they were underground, they would be moving slowly and would be beaten around like punching bags. Linley and BB immediately transformed into rays of light, quickly emerging from underground. "Haha, you finally came out." Loud laughter rang out, and the golden-haired man drew closer. So close. Upon leaving the ground, Linley and BB discovered that this golden-haired man was less than 100 meters away now. Linley was so startled, he immediately set up his Blackstone space, once more repulsing the golden-haired man. By relying on his speed, he was once more able to pull away. "Bastard! This damn thing again. Just like Rice Gem, how damn annoying." The golden-haired man howled furiously. He was currently filled with rage. In the Blackstone space, he wasn't able to draw near Linley at all. Right at this moment. The golden-haired man stared. Linley, while running at full speed, suddenly turned to stare at him. At the same time, an enormous, sinuous, coiled illusion of an azure dragon suddenly appeared behind Linley. The azure dragon phantom's golden eyes were staring coldly at the muscular Hemmers, while at the same time, the sound of a dragon's roar began to ring out in Hemmer's mind. Innate divine ability, dragon roar. Time drastically slowed down in the region Hemmer's soul was in. Hemmers was stunned. Within his field of vision, he watched as Linley and BB seemed to suddenly move tens of times faster, and with a swish disappeared from his field of vision. But of course, it wasn't that Linley and BB actually moved faster, it was that Hemmers himself had slowed down by tens of times. The effect of the dragon roar had finally brought an end to this pursuit. Dragon roar? The dragon roar of the Azure Dragon clan? What terrible luck! Hemmers rubbed his big nose. Still, I really am too slow. Given the repulsive force of the gravitational space of that kid of the Azure Dragon clan, even if I used Sovereign's might, I would only be able to barely maintain parity with him while under the effects of that repulsive force. Hemmers couldn't help but shake his head. In pure fleeing speed, Linley and Hemmers were roughly the same, and when going all out, Hemmers actually held the advantage. But by relying on the Blackstone space, Linley made it so that even if Hemmers used Sovereign's might, the two would still roughly be on par. Still, speed was never my forte. There's nothing I can do. Hemmers shook his head. The best thing for me to do is to beg a sovereign to create a long-distance sovereign weapon for me. For example, something like a javelin, and by then, given my attack power, who would be able to block it? This is my third time participating in the planar wars. Altogether, I'm still missing 3 commander badges. I have to work hard and see, after the conclusion of this planar war, if I'll be able to come up with enough military merits. Hemmers shook his head, leaving with large strides. Hey! Hemmers shouted towards the distance while leaving. You people, stop watching over there. If you have the ability to do so, come closer to me. Hemmers, looks like you failed again, haha. A loud laugh rang out from afar, and then the laughter faded away. A group of cowards. Hemmers snorted, then left. In the distance, 3 people were together. 2 male youths, along with a violet-haired, violet-robed girl. The violet-robed girl laughed softly. Hey, did the 2 of you see that? There was someone who was so foolish and hot-headed as to go offend that fellow Hemmers. Don't they know that Hemmers is one of the top-ranked experts of the entire Divine Earth Plane? Most likely, those 2 aren't familiar with the various commanders yet. One of the 3, a black-horned, silver-haired youth, laughed calmly. But those 2 aren't weak either, they were able to battle Hemmers without dying. Unfortunately, we came too late and weren't able to find out where the 2 ran off to. The other male youth of the 3, a person with dazzling golden hair and strange silver-white eyes, said. "Let's go. Let's leave this place. If Hemmers makes trouble for us, that will be a pain in the neck." The three immediately slipped away. Amidst the grass, Linley and BB were lying down and resting. "Boss, where did that freak come from? Your full-force sword blow was only able to barely pierce his skin. And his punches. They went straight through your body." BB sent mentally. "And that's because my body is very strong," Linley said with a self-mocking laugh. "BB, you don't know this, but when that punch pierced through my chest, a strange, rippling power seemed to shake my entire body. Fortunately, my dragon-formed body is far tougher than a death god golem. Otherwise, I would have ended up the same way, just like the death god golem, my entire body would have collapsed." When Linley had seen that, he had felt shocked. "Alas boss, although there are quite a few commanders we can deal with here in the planar wars, there's also a good number we can't. We weren't so bad off this time, this one was weak in speed. But if next time, we really slam into a metal wall, that would be terrible," BB said with a frown. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 18. List of names. If we really slam into a metal wall. Linley was rather worried now as well. Amongst commanders, there were indeed a number of figures who could be described as being invincible. If they ran into such a figure, he and BB would be in true danger. This universe was capable of giving birth to a terrifying divine beast such as the god Ada Rat, as well as a divine beast capable of altering time such as the Azure Dragon. It could also give birth to other terrifying divine beasts. Baruch was only reputed to be the number one figure beneath the Blood Ridge Sovereign. There were most likely some people who were comparable to him. Linley didn't dare to underestimate any commander. Forget it. In the planar battlefield, for commanders to slaughter each other is what happens anyhow. BB mumbled. It comes down to luck, I suppose. We are at a major disadvantage. Linley shook his head. The commanders who have come to participate in the planar wars are all very familiar with the other commanders. We know too little, this will cause us to blindly attack enemies. For example, that Hemmers. If we knew who he was in advance, we could have just let him pass and not anger him. Linley was resigned. After all, he had just barely reached the Azura level. We are indeed at a disadvantage. We know too few people. BB said helplessly. Linley's eyes suddenly lit up. Linley slapped himself on the head, hard, then laughed at himself. BB, look at me. My mind's gone muddled. You and I don't know them, but can't we ask others? BB was startled. My divine fire clone is at the Yulon continent. I can go ask your grandpa Baruch. Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. BB instantly began to laugh as well. Right. Grandpa definitely knows a great deal. Why didn't I think of this? After having come to the planar wars, Linley and BB had completely focused on the dangerous, warlike environment. They had only been thinking of hunting and killing other commanders and so hadn't thought about other things. BB, let's not go out for now. First, let me get a clear picture of the various commanders of the other planes, and get a sense of who is hard to deal with, who is easy to deal with. Then we'll make our choices. Linley laughed. BB nodded as well. They did indeed have plenty of time, and weren't in a rush. The Yulon Plain. The Forest of Darkness. Whoosh. The world was bathed in white. Drifting plumes of snow fell down from the skies, while a fiery blur was currently passing through the air above the Forest of Darkness at high speed. At this moment, a fiery, red-robed Linley with fiery red hair was flying at high speed towards Baruch's metallic castle. This metallic castle was very familiar with Linley, and didn't bar his way at all. As Linley landed, he directly entered into the metallic castle. Within the front courtyard of the metallic castle, A black-robed Beirut was standing there, holding a book and seated beneath a great tree formed from the metallic life form. The thick leaves completely blocked out the falling snow. Lord Beirut. Linley bowed respectfully. Beirut turned and laughed calmly while giving him a glance. "Oh, Linley, is there something you need? Did you encounter some difficulties in the planar battlefield?" After speaking, Beirut once more lowered his head to flip through the book in his hands. "Lord Beirut, BB and I are doing pretty poorly in the planar battlefield. We found a target, but who would have imagined, the target was so powerful that even BB and I combined weren't a match for him. Fortunately, speed was not one of his strengths, nor was he skilled at long-distance attacks, so we managed to escape with our lives," Linley said ashamedly. Beirut, surprised, closed his book. "You and BB combined weren't a match for him?" Beirut asked. "The two of you against one person, one uses an innate divine ability against the soul and divine spark, while the other uses a material attack. You two complement each other very well, there aren't many commanders who can block that. His name is Hammers." Linley reported the name. "Him." Beirut couldn't help but start to laugh. "Haha, you two really are fearless. You even dare go irritate that big, boorish fellow. Others run as fast as they can when they see him. The material attack of Hammers can be ranked in the top 10 of the entire universe. Even your patriarch, Gislason, can't withstand a punch from Hammers. I only learned that afterwards," Linley said, laughing bitterly. "Lord Beirut, how can Hammers' punches be so powerful?" Linley was completely confused. "I, too, train in the laws of the earth, and saw the attacks of the Red Cliff Lord. But I don't understand why Hammers' punches and kicks could be so." Linley shook his head, indicating his confusion. The previous Red Cliff Lord was skilled in material attacks as well, and he had fused 5 profound mysteries. His power was extremely great. When Linley and him had exchanged punches, Linley had been slightly inferior. "That's his innate gift." Beirut began to chortle. "Innate gift?" Linley was startled. "Do you know how many profound mysteries he has fused?" Beirut laughed. "No idea." Linley shook his head. "Is it high, or is it low?" "He has fused 4. Beirut laughed calmly. "This is something I heard from the sovereign when I was by his side." Linley was stunned. Fusing 4 profound mysteries put him at the 7-star fiend level, but the power which Hammers had displayed was terrifyingly strong. If one could be so breathtakingly strong after having fused just 4 profound mysteries, the strength of his innate gifts could be easily imagined. This Hammers was born and blessed with incomparably great strength, and his defense is tremendous as well. According to legend, when the divine earth plane was first created, a small golden mountain was formed. After countless years of nurturing, it eventually transformed into a living creature. Hammers. Beirut laughed. "Do you know? As soon as he transformed upon reaching the demigod level, he became a sovereign's emissary and was given a soul-protecting sovereign artifact." Linley was speechless. A sovereign's emissary as a demigod. His body is indestructible. Given that he also has a soul-protecting sovereign artifact, to kill him is virtually impossible. Because his body was formed from that unique golden mountain that was formed alongside the plane itself, his power was extremely great from birth. Even without using any profound mysteries, a punch from him can shatter space. Now that he has fused 4 profound mysteries, there aren't many people who can take a punch from him," Beirut said in praise. Linley couldn't help but feel speechless. Some innate divine abilities really were ridiculous. "I, a god-eater rat, refine divine sparks to strengthen my body. But Hammers was born with such a powerful body." Beirut laughed calmly. "However, purely in terms of physical toughness, Hammers is still slightly inferior to us god-eater rats." Linley understood this as well. The bodies of god-eater rats were comparable to divine sparks, After all, Lord Beirut, we were at a huge disadvantage this time. Thus, I want to ask you, Lord Beirut, if you can give me some information regarding the Azura level experts of the various major planes. Let me get an understanding of them. That way, we won't rashly compete against some truly supreme experts again. Linley said hurriedly. Beirut nodded slightly. I guessed that you would come find me. Beirut waved his hand, and a bluish copper-colored chest suddenly appeared in front of him. This chest has a great deal of information within it, as well as scryer recordings. Take a close look and get a good understanding of the various supreme experts of the various planes. Linley couldn't help but look excitedly towards the bluish copper chest. With this thing, he would be prepared to deal with the enemies. Read it here. If there are any questions, you can ask me. Beirut laughed calmly. Thank you, Lord Beirut. Linley immediately went over and opened the chest. Inside were a large number of scryer recordings, as well as thick realms of documents. Linley immediately moved the chest to one side and then began to read carefully, right there in the courtyard. Magnus Magii Nusi, Celestial Realm. A supreme expert who ranks in the top 5. Trains in the Edicts of Fate. Seems to be a high god paragon, Linley began to truly read in earnest. The information regarding one supreme expert after another entered Linley's mind, and Linley now truly began to understand. So each of the 11 great planes had such a high number of experts hidden in reclusion. It must be understood that the 7 laws and 4 edicts alone had a total of 77 sovereigns. How could the number of supreme high god experts be lacking? In but a single day's time, Linley finished reading all of the materials and viewed all of the scryer recordings. Linley now truly had the feeling that there were so many experts in the universe. The 11 great planes, it seems as though there are less than 30 high god paragons. Linley was secretly amazed. In other words, each plane has, on average, just 2 or 3 high god paragons. And these are only those who are suspected to be paragons. As for the sovereigns, the 11 planes each have 7 sovereigns. Linley finally realized how truly rare high god paragons were. As for commander-level experts, there were far more. For example, in the infernal realm, there were 108 lord prefects and 108 purgatory commanders. The infernal realm alone held 216 commander-level experts, and that didn't include many retired experts or supreme experts who never formally held the title of lord prefect. It was truly hard to calculate how many had retired, in fact. The infernal realm alone had hundreds, perhaps nearly 1,000 experts who were at the commander level of power. And the other 3 higher realms and the other 7 divine planes? There really are so many. Linley said to himself in amazement. Only, the vast majority of them won't participate in the battles at all. This was because the 11 great planes had existed for too long. When Linley had been with the Azure Dragon clan and encountered some of the elders of the clan, he realized that these elders had lived for unknowably long periods of time already. From this, one could imagine how long the histories of the various planes were. It made sense that after countless years, many experts had arisen. Thud. Linley shut the chest. At this time, Beirut walked over from the courtyard. With a calm laugh, he said, "Oh, done reading?" "Yes." Linley took a deep breath. This list of names of powerful experts allowed Linley to truly understand the concept of a heaven beyond heaven. Although he had just barely crossed the threshold of an Azura, there were many Azura-level experts, after all. The infernal realm alone had 216, not even counting the retired or hidden experts. After learning these things, don't be overconfident in the future. Beirut said with a calm laugh. The planar battlefield is a place of life and death. Thus, commanders who aren't very confident generally won't show their real faces to people. Won't show their real faces. Linley was stunned. Then isn't it pointless for me to read these things? After having viewed the materials and scryer recordings, Linley learned what these people looked like and what their supreme techniques were. But if they changed their appearances, how would he tell them apart? Don't worry too much. It is only the weak who change their appearances. As for the experts who are truly, completely confident in themselves, they can't be bothered to change their appearances, because they fear no one. Baruch said. Linley couldn't help but nod. It was hard to judge superiority or inferiority amongst the truly high-level, supreme experts amongst the Azuras. For example, some high god paragons could only be said to be in the top 3 or the top 5 of a particular plane. There was no way of saying if he was definitely the best. After all, after training to the very peak, even if there were slight differences in power, it would be hard for one of them to kill the other. Lord Baruch, in other words, as long as I encounter someone I don't recognize, I should attack. Linley laughed. Right. Baruch laughed as well. Actually, the planar wars are very pointless. Baruch suddenly shook his head. It's simply a charnel house meant for reducing the number of supreme experts, but of course, it will also give birth to a few supreme experts. Linley was startled. Charnel house? Lord Baruch, what are you saying? Linley couldn't help but speak out. Baruch said with a calm laugh, there are too many people and too many experts in the various planes. In addition, these planes have existed for countless years. Their long existences have resulted in countless experts. The planar wars are a tool meant to be used to reduce the number of experts. Every trillion years, every plane will undergo a planar wars, thus reducing the number of experts. A single planar war will continue for 1,000 years. In the course of those 1,000 years, it is virtually only the commanders who will fight against and slaughter each other, while those who don't wish to battle hide in their camps. At the very end of the planar war, the armies of both sides will fight each other at the bridges through the stellar sea and engage in a wild slaughter. Baruch said with a chuckle. To the vast majority of people, this is suicide. But to a few people, this is an excellent opportunity. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 19, An Untended Willow Grows. Linley now understood. When he originally entered the planar battlefield, Linley had discovered that many army camps were situated at each side of the stellar river, and yet there were no signs of activity. Linley didn't understand why. Only now did he understand, that at the final part, the two armies would begin to kill each other. That's too vicious. It's tantamount to suicide. Linley couldn't help but say. Although it is vicious and cruel, it's also a good chance to earn military merits. Baruch said with a calm laugh. In that sort of chaotic battle between two great armies, even commanders might die. And if one is lucky, one might be able to instantly acquire a large number of soldier badges and even commander badges. That is the time when the rewards are greatest, but yes, also when the danger is greatest. In Linley's mind instantly floated an image of countless high gods launching attacks against each other, with commanders amongst them. Indeed, that was a terrifying scene. It'd be best for you to acquire enough commander badges prior to this event. Baruch laughed calmly. Linley nodded. When the two armies battled chaotically, that was indeed a time of great reward, but also a time of tremendous danger. If, within 1,000 years, I don't collect enough commander badges, then I'll have to go participate in the mass battle. Linley said to himself silently. For the sake of his family and friends, Linley wouldn't cower. The planar battlefield, within a fairly black mountain. Linley and Bibi were together. This sort of lifeless black mountain could be seen everywhere throughout the planar battlefield. Crunch. Bibi was eating some fruit. Linley, seated in the meditative posture, suddenly opened his eyes. Hey, boss. Did you get the news from my grandfather? Bibi's eyes immediately lit up. Linley smiled and nodded. Right. I now have an understanding of most of the commander-level experts of the various planes. From today onwards, how about this? I'll control the death god golem by myself to draw in commanders. They had enough time. Linley was in no rush. Right. BB chortled, then nodded. All right. I was wanting to take more naps anyhow. When you find a target, boss, call me. BB, even in the planar battlefield, was always in the mood for napping. More than 800, close to 900, years are left before this planar war concludes. We need to put this long period of time to good use. Perhaps during this period of time, I'll fuse my fourth profound mystery of the laws of the earth. Linley said with a sigh. 4. Right, boss, didn't you already combine the throbbing pulse of the world, the profound mysteries of strength, the essence of the earth, and gravitational space? Finishing the fusion should be fairly quick. BB mumbled. I've combined them, but what I now need to do is to separately fuse the profound mysteries of strength with the essence of the earth and gravitational space as well. Only after I complete this will all four have been completely fused. Most likely, in another century or so, the separate fusions will be finished. Linley said with a calm laugh. Actually, Linley had already improved significantly in the past 60 or 70 years he had spent here in the netherworld. After all, once the fusion had started, fusing up to the bottleneck was just a matter of time. Hey, boss, once you fuse four profound mysteries, your attack power will rise greatly once again. BB said excitedly. Actually, I already have a direction in my mind. Linley said with a calm laugh. After having seen the attacks of the previous Red Cliff Lord and of Hammers, Linley had already gained some insights. BB either napped or trained, in short, he was always just waiting. Linley's divine clones focused on their training, while his original body controlled the death god golem outside. Time flowed on, and in the blink of an eye, 2 more months passed. It's only been 1 month, but I've lost a death god golem already. Linley shook his head helplessly as he spoke. Half a year ago, when I saw that supreme expert of the divine light realm, I wanted to control my death god golem to make it flee, but that person pursued and attacked, forcibly destroying my death god golem as well as the surrounding area. Fortunately, I hid deep enough, and his divine sense didn't extend all the way down to me. BB opened his eyes and laughed. It is just a death god golem. It is cheap. It's nothing. If I knew, I would have brought some more here with me. Linley said. At this moment, Linley was controlling another death god golem, patrolling outside. In 2 months, we haven't seen a single suitable opponent. BB let out a sigh. Don't sigh. If we hadn't gone to your grandpa Baruch and found out some information, most likely against that previous person, we would have gone to go fight against that supreme expert of light. Fortunately, we avoided that disaster. Linley laughed. Just as Linley and BB were sighing, suddenly. Boom. The entire mountain trembled violently, and quite a few rocks smashed down atop Linley and BB. What's going on? What's happening? BB said with a frown. Wait a moment. The death god golem that I'm controlling is thousands of meters away. Oh, the death god golem sees it. 2 experts are battling. Linley said, surprised. Next to the mountain where Linley and BB were residing, there were 2 figures clashing. One was a violet blur, while the other was a white blur. One violet saber flash after another flew out of the body of the violet blur, with one of them landing viciously against the nearby small mountain. Bang! An explosive collision. The 2 were both knocked flying back by the collision. The violet blur was actually a green-eyed, violet-robed, vicious-looking youth, while the white blur was a handsome, silver-haired, blue-pupiled youth. The silver-haired youth's face was filled with rage. Lancelot lang si luo. Don't go too far. You and I are on the same side. Why must you insist on killing me? The silver-haired youth roared. Humph, So what if we are on the same side? You should have been prepared for death the moment you entered the planar battlefield. The violet-robed youth let out a cold laugh. He said nothing else, immediately beginning to fill the surrounding area with violet bolts of electricity, and it seemed as though lightning bolts were beginning to fill the skies as well. The silver-haired youth's face changed. In terms of speed, he couldn't compete with the lightning element Lancelot. He wouldn't be able to flee. Battle was the only option. He knew that he was weaker, but all he could do was fight it head-on. With a low growl, he said, "Lancelot, if you don't give me any chance, then I won't let you have an easy time of it either." The silver-haired youth's body began to glow with a white aura, and then, with a cold shot, a white spear suddenly appeared next to him. Along with a translucent spear, the material attack and the spiritual attack converged into one. Swish! The two spears folded onto each other, and the illusory white spear shot straight towards the front. "Die, then," the green-eyed, violet-robed youth said emotionlessly. Rumble, the lightning bolts in the sky suddenly crashed down in the form of an enormous lightning serpent. At the same time, a green bolt of lightning emerged from the body of the violet-robed youth, also in the form of an enormous serpent. These two enormous lightning serpents attacked from opposite directions, encircling the silver-haired youth. Right at this moment, the spear arrived before the violet-robed youth's body. Humph! The violet-robed youth let out a cold sneer. He stretched out his right hand, and between his fingers formed a ball of violet light, which he smashed directly onto the illusory spear. Bang! That illusory white spear was a combination material attack and spiritual attack. And now, the illusory white spear completely shattered. The material attack wasn't even able to damage the violet-robed youth's fingers. The spiritual attack was broken as well. Crackle! The violet and green electric serpents swirled around the silver-robed youth, whose face changed. The two different electric serpents actually created an unusual spatial electric field, causing the space itself to become electrified. That unusual electric field rippled throughout the silver-haired man's body. Ah! The white-robed, silver-haired youth raised his head, roaring angrily. A powerful aura swept out from his body, and the white glow strengthened. At a time like this, you want to fight by using up Sovereign's might? You use yours, and I'll use mine. Isn't the result the same? Lancelot laughed in his heart. His body also emanated forth a powerful aura, and the violet light began to fill his entire body as well. As the two experts both began to use their Sovereign's might, Linley and BB also quietly slipped out of the mountain, moving underground until they arrived at a place with a large amount of random vegetation. The two hid there, staring at the experts battling in the distance. "They are both so strong," BB said in praise. "The white-robed youth is a commander of the Divine Light Plane, Roland Yolanda. That green-eyed, violet-robed youth is a commander of the Divine Lightning Plane, Lancelot. According to the information provided by your grandpa Baruch, this Lancelot is an extremely hard-to-deal-with commander," Linley said mentally. "Roland is specialized in spiritual attacks, while Lancelot is skilled in both spiritual and material attacks, and he is also extremely fast. In addition, he's also fused a defensive sovereign artifact into his body." BB couldn't help but feel startled. Fused a defensive sovereign artifact into his body? Isn't that the same as the Grand Elder? Linley nodded slightly, continuing to watch the two battle in the distance. That Lancelot should be unbeatable in terms of material defense, due to possessing a defensive sovereign artifact, and he is also extremely skilled in soul defense. Thus, to break through his soul defense is also very hard. This person is a very powerful commander. Lancelot was, indeed, virtually flawless. He trained in the laws of lightning and was thus very fast. He was strong in every single aspect. Even amongst the many commanders of the universe, he was considered a high-class one. However, Linley laughed. BB, you perfectly counter him. To resist BB's innate divine ability, God-aidor, one had to either be a paragon or have a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. This Lancelot had met his black star. Normally, Lancelot's soul defense should be considered incredibly powerful, but unfortunately, BB's innate divine ability wasn't something which a normal soul attack could compete with. Haha, boss, leave em to me. BB grew excited. The battle is about to end. Linley sent mentally. Indeed, the white-robed youth, Roland, was in a completely inferior position. The violet-robed Lancelot launched a final material attack, causing Roland's entire body to blow apart. Haha, Lancelot laughed as he walked over, snatching up a golden badge as well as an interspatial ring from the ground. Right at this moment. Who? Lancelot barked irritably while turning his head. He could already sense that there were movements nearby, but he didn't care too much. There were very few, even amongst the commanders, capable of killing him. What Lancelot saw stunned him. He saw a black blur flying towards him at high speed, while at the same time, in midair, the enormous illusion of a God-aidor rat appeared. The God-aidor rat illusion was staring coldly at him, and when Lancelot saw this, his face couldn't help but change. Baruch? Ah! No. Lancelot had gone completely mad. He had almost no weaknesses, but that was only against the vast majority of commanders. It didn't mean he was completely flawless. If he was completely perfect and flawless, why would he even need to come to the planar battlefield? Baruch's innate divine ability, God-aidor, was extremely famous, and it perfectly countered people like Lancelot. Against this technique, all would perish, save those who had soul-protecting sovereign artifacts and paragons. This was how dominating innate divine abilities were. Lancelot didn't understand. The legendary Baruch had a body which was even tougher than divine sparks, could use his bare hands to clash against sovereign weapons, and who had a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. He was that sort of completely flawless supreme expert with no weaknesses. Someone like him, already stood at the very top of the universe. Why did he have to come to the planar battlefield? Lancelot didn't understand. But, he wouldn't have a chance to understand in the future either. A unique rippling power spread across his soul, and in the face of this attack, his soul defense wasn't able to do a single thing. Lancelot stood there, stunned. That sinister look would never again flash past his green eyes. He seemed completely wooden, and then, with a bang sound, he collapsed against the ground. A divine spark drifted out, along with a golden badge which emerged from his body, along with a dark golden armor. A gold badge and a defensive sovereign artifact. Linley's eyes lit up. Linley and BB transformed into two blurs, immediately collecting the golden badge, the defensive sovereign artifact, and the interspatial rings. Let's hurry and leave. We can't tarry here. Linley and BB didn't stay to do a thorough investigation, instead immediately leaving. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 20, A Tranquil Heart. Russell. A cold wind howled, and the grass swayed, bending down in supplication. Lancelot and Roland's corpses lay there on the ground, with no hint of life. Prior to this, they were both supreme experts of their respective planes, commander-level experts who imposed their will on their world. The reason they entered the planar battlefield was because they hoped to rise to yet another level, to accumulate enough military merits so as to trade for a sovereign artifact, allowing them to become high-level experts even amongst commanders. Unfortunately, for some to succeed, others had to fail. One commander's success represented the deaths of 10 commanders, or 100,000 high god soldiers. This was the price of success. Unluckily, Lancelot and Roland had just become failures. Whoosh! The wind arose, and then stopped. Two figures appeared within the battlefield. These two were dressed in long green robes, and had long green hair. Even their faces and body shapes were similar. From the surface, the only difference between the two was that, one had golden eyebrows while the other had white eyebrows. Someone who didn't recognize them, upon seeing them, would take the two to be a single person's clones. If Linley was here, he would recognize these two as being the legendary twin commanders of the Divine Wind Plane. "Elder brother, did you see that?" the man with the white eyebrows said solemnly. The youth with the golden eyebrows took a look at the two corpses on the ground as well, nodding slightly. "I saw it. Although I've never personally seen the legendary innate divine ability of Baruch, based on the scryer recordings that I saw, I can affirm that just now, that illusion should have been one of a god-eater rat. Prior to this, when BB had used his innate divine ability, the illusion of a god-eater rat had been 100 meters tall, allowing others to see it from far away. This was the reason why Linley and BB had immediately left." The youth with the white eyebrows nodded. "Lancelot, even if we joined forces against him, it would be a hard fight. He was hard to deal with. Lancelot's soul defense was exceedingly strong, and to kill him, a high god paragon would be needed. But of course, there is also Baruch, who possessed such a terrifying innate divine ability. Baruch's innate supreme technique ignores all ordinary soul defenses. The person who attacked just now, was most likely Baruch. Baruch had become famous just a bit more than 10,000 years ago. As for BB, too few people knew of him. BB hadn't done anything particularly breathtaking yet after having become a high god. How could these experts of other planes know about him? Thus, they all believed that it had been Baruch who had attacked. "Baruch, why has he come to the planar battlefield?" the youth with the white eyebrows said, frowning. "Given his power, he doesn't need to come to this place. His punches and kicks are already comparable to sovereign weapons. The planar battlefield is already a chaotic enough place. With him joining the mix, this is absolutely unfair. So what if it is unfair? Dare you go and have a grand battle against Baruch?" the youth with the golden eyebrows said with a laugh. It was precisely because they had seen the illusion of a god-eater rat that they had intentionally waited quite a while before returning. They were afraid they might run into Baruch. "Enough, second brother. Let's go. Be careful. If we see that Baruch, let's make sure we stay far away from him." The youth with the golden eyebrows glanced at the two corpses on the ground, and then transformed into a blur and departed, with his younger brother following him. This empty area now only had those two lifeless corpses remaining. Within that small black hill was an empty cave. Linley and BB had emerged from underground and dug out this giant cave from within the hill. "Ha ha, boss, what great rewards, what great rewards!" BB excitedly called out, while tossing out one item after another, the violet armor, the interspatial rings, and everything else. Just as BB was about to excitedly say a few things, he suddenly froze. "Boss." BB looked at Linley, stunned. Linley was currently staring at the golden badge in his hands. His eyes were filled with excitement, and even tears. "Finally! I finally have a golden badge." Linley clenched his hand tightly around the golden badge, pressing it against his heart. In this moment, Linley felt as though this golden badge had transformed into his father, into George, into Yale. He couldn't help but think of those precious memories from back when he was a toddler or when he was a youth. The golden badge, to Linley, did it represent a sovereign artifact? No. This was something which would allow the father he had lost in his youth to return. To let his brothers who had died such unjust deaths to return. "Father. Boss Yale. George." Linley shut his eyes and murmured. "I can save at least one of you now. My father, my brothers, you have to wait for me. Wait for me to emerge from the planar wars. You've already endured for nearly 2,000 years. Just endure a little longer. Wait for me." Tears unconsciously began to seep out from the corners of his eyes. Ever since he had entered the netherworld, over the past few decades, Linley had been under great pressure. He felt as though a giant stone was constantly pressing against his heart. First, he had to go to the Abyssal Mountain to meet the chief sovereign of death, from whom he just barely saw a glimmer of hope. He then went to Tartarus to challenge the Red Cliff Lord, finally succeeding and becoming qualified to enter the planar battlefield. But that had only been the beginning. After entering the planar battlefield, Linley was under constant pressure, and he had a lost feeling in his heart. Deep in his heart, he even felt a hint of dread. This seemingly peaceful planar battlefield had too many powerful experts hiding within it. Linley was afraid that he could encounter a truly supreme expert who would kill himself and Bibi. He wasn't afraid of dying himself, but if Bibi were to die, Linley would forever regret it. And, if that happened, he would never again be able to save his father and his brothers. After having been in the planar battlefield for more than half a year, and after repeated failures, Linley had even begun to doubt himself. Nervousness, restlessness. These emotions had constantly ensnarled Linley. Although on the surface, it appeared as though Linley had lain in wait calmly, in his heart, Linley was frantic. This was because he hadn't killed a single commander. He had begun to doubt if he would be able to acquire a single commander's badge. This was the sort of nervous restlessness in which Linley had been living. But now, just now, such a huge battle had suddenly erupted. And it had brought such an unexpected delight. I finally succeeded. A gold badge. Linley said to himself. Bibi and I, working together, will definitely succeed. It hasn't even been a year, but I've already acquired a gold badge. In addition, there are nearly 9 centuries left to this planar war. I will definitely acquire enough gold badges. This success had allowed Linley's heart to calm down greatly. No matter how vicious and dangerous the future days would be, Linley would confidently face them. Right. There's another gold badge. Linley suddenly turned to look towards Bibi, saying hurriedly, Bibi, that interspatial ring. Hurry up and open it and take a look. When Roland was killed, that gold badge was placed into the interspatial ring. Linley was feeling rather excited. Bibi had been paying attention to Linley's facial expressions this entire time, and he immediately laughed. All right, I'll open it up right away. Bibi understood that the tears Linley had just shed were tears of joy. A single drop of blood flew out from Bibi's skin, landing atop the interspatial ring. Bibi stared. Linley couldn't help but frown. The drop of blood actually splashed onto the interspatial ring, then rolled off and fell to the ground, striking it with a whap sound. Damn! That Lancelot has a divine clone that is still alive. Bibi said angrily. So it really was the case. Linley had been mentally prepared for this all along. Generally speaking, the vast majority of commanders who entered the planar battlefield would leave a divine clone outside. After all, the chance of death in the planar battlefield was simply too high. As for Lancelot, clearly, he had left a divine clone outside as well, causing Linley to be completely unable to open this interspatial ring. Arg! Bibi immediately called out furiously. The defensive sovereign artifact. The defensive sovereign artifact is also useless. If even the interspatial ring couldn't be bound, then the same would naturally be true for the defensive sovereign artifact. Linley glanced at the dark golden armor, then laughed and said, Bibi, don't worry about that. You should know, this defensive sovereign artifact was given to Lancelot by a sovereign. Even though we killed him, the sovereign will still take back the sovereign artifact. At most, we'd be able to use it temporarily for a time. I know this principle, but we should have at least been able to wear it for a time, right? Bibi said helplessly. For a time? Who knows when the sovereign would come and take back the sovereign artifact? Linley said with a calm laugh. Linley even suspected that sovereigns were monitoring the planar wars at all times. The sovereigns might immediately take back their artifact, or they might wait for a bit of time to pass before taking it. But one thing was certain, a sovereign artifact acquired through killing someone would definitely be taken away by the sovereign in the end. To me, what I really feel is unfortunate is the loss of that badge. Linley shook his head and sighed. Right. We can't take the badge out either. BB said resignedly. According to the rules of trading for military merits, once the planar war concluded and the combatants exited through the interspatial gate, they would immediately receive military merits based on the number of badges acquired. Even if Linley found Lancelot's clone in the future and forced him to withdraw the gold badge, it would be useless. So some badges actually end up going to waste like this. Linley said with a bitter laugh. Perhaps an expert might kill 7 or 8 other commanders and acquire 7 or 8 badges. But if the expert was in turn killed, that person would only acquire a single badge. As for the 7 or 8 badges in the interspatial ring, there was no way to retrieve them. They had to go to waste. There must be many that go to waste. For example, during the final battle in the stellar sea corridors. BB said with a sigh. That's a place where you gamble with your life. Perhaps you'll end up fighting all the way into the chaotic space regions of the stellar sea. Also, some badges will fall into the chaotic space regions or the spatial tiers of the stellar sea. BB said. Linley nodded slightly. It seems as though relying on taking advantage of the work of others isn't a simple thing. Unless the person has no divine clone outside, of course. But the number of people who would do that is too little. Linley said, shaking his head. Acquiring enough military merits wasn't a simple task. It had to be done step by step. Boss, what should we do with the interspatial ring? Destroy it, or keep it? BB said. Keeping it will only result in problems and no benefits. Destroy it? Linley said with a calm laugh. Whap. BB exerted some force, completely crushing the interspatial ring in his fingers. The items within the interspatial ring all transformed into nothingness as well. This sovereign artifact, leave it here for the sovereign to collect. Linley said with a calm laugh. Haha, actually, even if we wanted to destroy it, we wouldn't be able to. BB said, then he gave the dark golden armor a few kicks. Damn, it's pretty hard. Humph, my body hasn't reached its limits yet. In the future, I definitely won't be weaker than any sovereign artifact. BB harumphed. Although BB's defensive power was great, each time he devoured a divine spark, he continued to use the essence of the divine spark to strengthen his body. It was a process that took some time. The amount of time BB had spent at the high god level was 1,000,000 years less than what Baruch had spent. There was still a difference between the two of them. Linley calmly trained there in the cave, while his original body continued to control his death god golem as bait. The planar battlefield was the same as it previously had been. On the surface, it was calm, but in the shadows, battles and massacres occasionally erupted. Although the planar battlefield was very dangerous, Linley, having succeeded once, was now confident in himself. He had acquired a gold badge in less than a year. If he could acquire one every 10 years, much less every year, he would easily accomplish his goal. He calmly waited. Waited for a big fish to bite on his bait. With my heart at peace, my training has increased in speed as well. Linley laughed calmly, opening his eyes. BB, as though sensing it, opened his eyes to look at Linley as well. Boss, what is it? BB, make your preparations. I've already discovered people nearby. A hint of light flashed through Linley's eyes. We have a target. BB instantly grew excited, jumping to his feet. Haha, it's been less than half a month, but we have a new target. It's time for me to show my skills off yet again. Haha. BB was extremely energetic. Don't be impatient. Let's see if they are enemies first. Let's go. Linley and BB immediately, quietly slipped through the underground tunnels, leaving the mountain. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 21, Flee on Sight. A short, black-robed figure flew out, moving like dark smoke through the cold, clammy underground earth of the planar battlefield. The figure suddenly came to a halt, staring stealthily into the distance. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, but the strange thing was that he was bald, but a layer of dark black light was atop his bald head, like a thin layer of black metal. This dark black scalp also had a round rune atop it. Someone is actually here. The bald youth stared into the distance. An enemy. After ascertaining the enemy's status, the bald youth didn't hesitate at all. Swoosh. Very suddenly, the bald youth accelerated explosively, shooting out like a meteor towards the black-robed man. The black-robed man suddenly turned his head, clearly seeing him. Not hesitating at all, the black-robed man immediately fled with a whoosh. You won't be able to escape. The bald youth's body flashed forward bizarrely. The surrounding area saw the formation of a spherical, earthen yellow glow which completely surrounded the black-robed man, who was trying to flee. Stuck within the earthen yellow light, the black-robed man's speed dropped dramatically. The bald youth seized the chance to immediately charge forwards, mercilessly striking out with his right hand. The bald youth was wearing a black glove on his right hand. His hand stretched out like the claws of a divine dragon, and as the space it passed through rippled and trembled. His claws instantly landed on the black-robed figure's shoulder. F***ck off. The black-robed man growled, and then he struck back with his right leg, kicking towards the youth. Crunch. A very clear sound. The black-robed man's shoulder was completely ripped apart. How tough. The bald youth felt slightly startled, but he didn't show any mercy. As the right-hand claw smashed down against the shoulder, it also then struck directly towards the black-robed man's head. As the right claw struck out, it actually formed a bizarre, spherical ball of light, causing even the nearby space to be bound, making it impossible for the black-robed man's head to dodge to any great degree. Slash. The 5 fingers of the bald youth's right hand pierced directly into the black-robed man's skull, and the man's head immediately exploded. The bald youth was very confident. This kick of yours won't be able to land on me. As the bald youth saw it, once the black-robed man died, he naturally wouldn't be able to continue to attack. Bang. The force of the black-robed man's right kick didn't lessen at all, crashing straight against the chest of the bald youth. The bald youth was knocked backwards, and he landed on the ground. Wait. That's a death god golem. The bald youth came to a shocked awareness. This is a trap. Bang. The bald youth kicked off furiously from the ground, and as he did, that spherical glow emanated from his right foot, the foot which kicked downwards. Instantly, he rocketed away, moving at high speed. As he moved, he would occasionally kick off from the ground again, each time creating that spherical glow, causing his speed to rise to a terrifying level. Moving as fast as lightning, in 2 or 3 leaps, he disappeared from the field of view. This fellow ran too fast. By the time Linley and BB emerged from the ground, all they could see was the departing back of the bald youth. Linley and BB had no choice but to vent their anger on a nearby boulder. As soon as the death god golem discovered him, he almost instantly discovered that it was a death god golem and that it was a trap. After discovering it was a death god golem, he didn't even pause and instead immediately fled. Geez. Linley couldn't help but shake his head. Nothing to show for it? BB pursed his lips and said, then turned to look at the distant, headless death god golem. And we even lost a death god golem. Boss, who was that person? Cloyd Kaloyita? An extremely strong commander who belongs to the divine earth plane. He likes to travel alone. Linley said with a laugh. Through the death god golem, Linley saw Cloyd's attack, and just by seeing Cloyd's attack, Linley became completely certain of who Cloyd was. However, Cloyd doesn't have a single sovereign artifact. We are completely capable of killing him. Linley felt rather regretful. It was an excellent opportunity. Unfortunately, Cloyd was too cautious. Upon discovering that it was a trap, he had immediately fled without hesitating at all. He doesn't have a single sovereign artifact, and yet he's strong. Bibi said with a frown. That's what the intelligence reports your grandpa Baruch provided to me said. Cloyd simply doesn't wish to be restricted and so doesn't wish to become a sovereign's emissary, which is why he has no sovereign artifacts. But despite that, killing him is extremely difficult. Linley let out a sigh. An expert of the laws of the earth. He must have fused at least 5 of the profound mysteries. The clawing blow he had delivered which had shattered the death god golem's shoulder contained 5 profound mysteries. The death god golem was torn through like mud. Just as Linley and Bibi were chatting mentally, from the corner of his eyes, Linley saw a distant figure suddenly appear. He immediately turned to look, only to see that roughly 200 or 300 meters away, a black figure was lying in hiding, seeming to inspect the death god golem that was lying on the ground. Linley suddenly grew excited. Bibi, we have a target. 300 meters to our left. Target. Bibi turned to look as well. Just at this moment, the distant black-robed figure, also vigilant, discovered that there were 2 figures not far away who were lying against the corner of a mountain boulder. Right at this moment, the gazes of Linley and the black-robed man met. Linley was suddenly startled, and he immediately sent through divine sense to Bibi, Bibi, this black-robed man, I can't sense the badge aura on him. He is an enemy. Let's attack. The closer one was, the more easily one could sense the badge aura. Linley and the enemy were less than 300 meters away. Logically speaking, even if he didn't have a clear sense, he should still sense a bit of the badge's aura. But if he didn't sense anything at all. Haha, one ran away, but another one was drawn close. Haha. Bibi was extremely excited. This black-robed person was indeed drawn here by the earlier actions of the bald youth. He had snuck over and watched quietly to the side. But Linley and Bibi were in a fairly hidden location, from which they just so happened to be able to clearly see the black-robed figure. The black-robed figure very calmly turned and fled. He's running. Linley's first reaction was to unleash his blackstone field. An enormous earthen yellow aura instantly sprang out, with Linley at the center, expanding to a radius of 500 meters. This blackstone space spread out far faster than the black-robed man ran. As soon as the man moved, he fell within the blackstone space. The gravity pulling was towards Linley. Gravitational space? What a powerful gravity, and it is pulling to the rear. The black-robed man was now shocked. He couldn't help but turn to look, and the already dragon-formed Linley and Bibi had transformed into a pair of azure and black blurs, advancing towards him rapidly. Pursuing me. The black-robed man didn't resist, instead choosing to flee. But attempting to flee while completely pulling against the gravitational force, how fast could he move? You want to run? Linley stared fixedly at the black-robed man, pursuing at high speed. In Linley's eyes, this black-robed man definitely had a gold badge. Every single gold badge represented that he would be able to save another one of his family or friends. While in hot pursuit, the distance between the two quickly shrank to less than a few dozen meters. In the blackstone space, the black-robed man's speed was reduced by simply too much. The black-robed man was angry now. I don't want to fight with you two. Let me leave. A divine sense rang out, echoing in Linley and Bibi's minds. Otherwise, don't blame me for being discourteous. You want to leave? And be discourteous? Linley laughed. Bibi, you can act now. He won't be able to escape at this distance. Linley sent mentally. Don't worry, boss. Bibi laughed delightedly. Right at this moment, You are looking for death. The black-robed man, who had been suppressing his temper, suddenly stabbed backwards with a dagger. Swoosh! A black light suddenly shot out, shooting towards Linley, so fast, that Linley wasn't able to dodge at all. So fast. Frantically, Linley stabbed out powerfully with the Godspark sword, Mirage, which was in his hands. Bang! The tip of Mirage collided with the tip of the dagger. Linley only felt a terrifying powerful force press towards him, going through Mirage and into his arms. Crackle, the draconic scales covering his right arm, which was gripping Mirage, instantly shattered. Blood began to flow out, and Linley was knocked backwards as well. When Linley retreated, the black stone field centered around him moved backwards as well, allowing the black-robed man to escape the perimeter of the black stone field. A sovereign artifact. Linley was shocked. The black-robed man had pulled away from Linley, but not from BB. Boss. BB was instantly enraged. Immediately, a colossal phantom of a god-eater rat once more appeared behind BB. The black-robed man turned to look, and what he saw terrified him so greatly, his face changed. How can this be? Baruch's innate divine ability. Baruch's technique was famous throughout the universe. Even many people who had never seen Baruch use this technique in person had seen scryer recordings of Baruch using his supreme attack. No. The black-robed man wanted to once more speak with his divine sense. Unfortunately, the speed of an innate divine ability was comparable to the speed of using divine sense to communication. As for BB, he used his innate divine ability first, and so the black-robed man didn't even have a chance to plead his case. Rumble. A strange ripple wrapped around the black-robed man's head, and immediately, a divine spark floated out from it. As for the black-robed man, he lifelessly slumped downwards. While the black dagger that had been flying back towards him fell to the ground as well. At the same time, a white badge fell out of his body. Whoosh! Whoosh! Linley and BB landed before his body. Linley was stupefied. What? A white badge? Linley stared at the white badge, not daring to believe it. Of the two sides in this battle, the Divine Light Plane had gold badges for commanders and white badges for soldiers. It's actually a soldier badge. Linley couldn't believe it. A person who had a sovereign artifact was a soldier? Boss, hurry up and leave. We can't stay here any longer. BB said hurriedly. Only now did Linley come to his senses. Not hesitating any further, Linley and BB hurriedly collected the interspatial ring, sovereign dagger, and white badge, then immediately flew away. Within a cave that was inside a large mountain. All of these people have divine clones outside. Even though we killed them, we still aren't able to bind their interspatial rings or sovereign artifacts with blood. BB said, angry and helpless. The sovereign artifact is one thing, the sovereign will take it back eventually, after all. But the interspatial ring definitely has quite a few things inside. What a pity, what a pity. Linley just stared at the white badge. He was actually a soldier. It really is very odd. A soldier who had a sovereign artifact. BB muttered. Linley suddenly had a thought, and many things instantly made sense. He couldn't help but shake his head resignedly and say, BB, I understand now. We found the wrong target. What is it? BB said, puzzled. Linley sighed. BB, didn't you notice? When the black-robed person discovered us, his first reaction was to flee. When we pursued him, his second reaction was to warn us that he didn't want to fight us, and that if we kept on bothering him, he would attack. Why didn't he want to fight? He had a sovereign artifact, so why flee? I think, the reason was because he was on our side. On our side. BB was stunned. Right. Linley said helplessly. I think this person should be a commander on our side, but he removed his commander badge and instead bound with blood this enemy soldier badge and became an enemy soldier. He bound an enemy soldier badge by blood. Once he gets close to an enemy commander, he would sense their aura, and so find them easily. In addition, he would be able to launch an ambush attack. Two birds with one stone. The only flaw, however, is that he will be attacked by the people on his own side. Disguising oneself as the enemy had benefits but also costs. That poor, black-robed man. He fell to Linley and Bibi's deadly hands. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 22, 60 Years in the Planar Battlefield. This fellow was pretending to be an enemy. I was happy for nothing. Bibi waved his hand, withdrawing a red fruit which he viciously crunched into with crisp chewing sounds. Boss, all of these commanders are incredibly sly and careful. Finding a suitable target is tough. How infuriating. If you feel irritated, calm down and train. Linley just sat down into the meditative position, beginning to train silently. This sort of life would last for another 8 centuries. Linley hoped to make yet another major improvement within these 800 years. Atop the vast, desolate earth, 3 figures of different heights were staring into the distance, looks of shock on their faces. Bibi's usage of his innate divine ability had created an illusion that was over 100 meters tall, and so these 3 saw it from hundreds of kilometers away. Although the 3 knew that someone was present a few hundred kilometers away, they didn't dare go over. Hey, that Baruch really did come to the planar battlefield. The shorter man raised an eyebrow, speaking with disbelief. When Bibi had used his innate divine ability to kill Lancelot, other commanders had seen it, resulting in the rumor of Baruch having arrived in the planar battlefield. Although Bibi had also used his innate divine ability on the other side against a violet-robed figure and was seen doing so, that news had only circulated amongst the commanders on that side and hadn't made it to the enemy side. Judging from that illusion, it really was Baruch's innate divine ability. I thought that the rumor was fake, but it was real. Why has Baruch run over to the planar battlefield along with us? Does he want to fight over military merits with us? He has no need of it. A white-haired, white-browed man with a single horn let out a sigh. The third was a black-robed, black-haired woman. What are you afraid of? We won't go antagonize that Baruch. But, if we join forces, we don't need to be afraid of him either. The black-robed woman said in a gravelly voice. Anya and Yat. Don't be too self-confident. According to legend, Baruch is even harder to deal with than a high god paragon. The white-haired, white-browed man said seriously. He doesn't fear the attacks of sovereign weapons at all, nor does he fear soul attacks, he is completely flawless. In addition, his material attacks and soul attacks are both incredibly powerful. If the 3 of us fought against him, he would defeat us one at a time. The black-robed woman gave the white-browed man a glance. Don't doubt me. The white-browed man said solemnly. Baruch had been famous for too short a period of time. Although he had become a high god long ago, Baruch had been able to endure being by himself and had remained in the Yulan continent. It was only 10,000 years ago that he had sprang to sudden prominence. Over the course of that rise to fame, he had become known as an invincible figure. He has no flaws, and is strong in every aspect. The shorter man said helplessly. His innate divine ability, God-Ater, could be described as the most powerful soul attack in existence. Baruch's material attacks were executed through a sovereign weapon. Even the patriarchs of the 8 great clans who had sovereign artifacts of their own were heavily injured by a single blow of Baruch's staff. One could imagine how terrifying his material attacks were. Who could possibly oppose someone like this? Let's go. The 3 of us need to be careful during this planar war. The white-browed man said calmly. If necessary, we can just acquire fewer military merits during this planar war. We can participate in the next one. I imagine Baruch wouldn't be so bored as to participate in the next one as well. And the next planar war will arrive shortly. Right. The other two nodded in agreement as well. The three immediately left. Beirut. High god paragons. They were at the very top of the world of deities. Only sovereigns were capable of easily dealing with them. The difference between them and normal high gods was simply too vast. In addition, the three-person squad of experts was in no hurry. Because, although the planar wars were carried out only once every trillion years, there was more than one war in each session of the planar wars. It must be understood that there are 7 divine planes and 4 higher realms. The life realm did not participate in this sort of war, and so the other 10 engaged in battles against each other, over the course of 5 sessions of the planar wars. The divine darkness plane against the divine light plane was just one, and after it concluded, a short period of time later, other divine planes would battle against each other, and even the higher realms would participate. There would be 5 consecutive sessions of planar wars. Generally speaking, if they were carried out quickly, the entire thing would be concluded in 10,000 years. Even if they were carried slowly, the planar wars would still conclude within 1,000,000 years. After the 5 battles concluded, they would restart after 1,000,000,000,000 years passed. 1,000,000,000,000 years was a very long period of time. If an expert had latent potential, 1,000,000,000,000 years was more than enough time for him to completely bring his latent potential to the surface. If a person remained an ordinary high god after 1,000,000,000 years, then even if you gave him 10 times or 100 times the amount of time, he still probably wouldn't increase in power any further. In addition, during each planar wars, a large number of high gods and commanders would die. This mechanism ensured that the number of supreme experts in the various planes didn't rise to an excessively large figure. But of course, it also made the strong even stronger. Beirut had arrived at the planar battlefield. This news quickly spread amongst the various commanders. The commanders all knew each other, and although many of them didn't quite believe it the first time they heard it, when Bibi had once again used his innate divine ability to kill that black-robed man, others had witnessed it in addition to those 3. This news was now completely verified. This caused an earthquake in the entire battlefield. Within a military camp, a beardless, middle-aged man with silver hair and elegantly drooping eyebrows was seated facing a golden-haired youth. The two were drinking wine. "Mr. Magnus, you don't believe me." The golden-haired youth laughed. "I believe you." The silver-haired, middle-aged man raised a long eyebrow, then shook his head uncomprehendingly. However, Beirut is someone who can be said is at the peak of deities. He should care more about his status. Even if he decided to take a stroll about the planar battlefield, he should remain within one of the military camps and smile while watching the other commanders kill each other. He shouldn't lower himself to go butcher those commanders. "Mr. Magnus, that's just your own viewpoint." The golden-haired youth laughed. Magnus was also someone who stood at the very peak of the world of deities. Although he stationed himself at a military camp, this was simply out of boredom. It was a game to him. There was still a gap between ordinary commanders and high god paragons or the likes of Beirut. For Beirut or Magnus to go attack those ordinary commanders really was an act of butchery. No. Although I've never met this Beirut, I've heard some stories of him. He's the type of person who is extremely capable of enduring and hiding. He's definitely not the sort of person who would be bored and lower himself to slaughtering ordinary commanders. Magnus shook his head. "I suspect that perhaps it isn't Beirut who used that technique." "Not him." The golden-haired youth was startled. "Right. Perhaps in the universe, there is another person who also possesses Beirut's supreme technique as well." Magnus said meditatively. Bibi had only become a high god 2 centuries ago. The members of the 4 Divine Beasts clan only knew that Bibi was Beirut's grandson. They didn't know that Bibi was like Beirut, someone capable of the God-Ader innate divine ability, much like how the children and descendants of the Azure Dragon didn't all necessarily have the Azure Dragon's strength. They didn't think that Bibi had that sort of power. BB's reputation had yet to spread. The planar battlefield. At the top of a tall mountain peak. A white-robed man with crimson eyebrows was currently leaning against the mountain. The wind rustled past his long black hair, but he simply leisurely held his cup of wine, lowering his head to take a sip. It was Bluefire, who had entered the planar battlefield not long ago. In the planar battlefield, the various commanders all hid their tracks. Who dared to reveal himself, much less stand at the top of a mountain? At the top of the mountain peak, staring down at the endless world, Bluefire laughed and shook his head. Innate divine ability, God-ater? It seems BB and Linley had arrived at the side of the stellar sea as well. Bluefire casually stood there at the top of the mountain, drinking his wine, but if someone were to stare at him from afar, they wouldn't see anyone there. The strange thing was, the space surrounding Bluefire was distorted. The planar wars, 10 commanders must die for someone to have enough military merits for a sovereign artifact. In addition, quite a few commanders who are killed had badges in their interspatial rings, which go to waste. For each sovereign artifact to be acquired, far more than 10 commanders will die. Bluefire let out a light sigh. Whoosh! Bluefire slid down the mountain, moving like a comet and quickly disappearing from that space. Time flowed on, and in the blink of an eye, 60 years passed. Inside a mountain cave within the planar battlefield. We lost yet another death god golem. BB mumbled. Linley, who was training nearby, opened his eyes. Nothing to show for it? Nothing. BB said resignedly. Controlling the death god golems was originally meant to be Linley's job, but BB was bored and so he would occasionally take over. Only, Linley hadn't imagined, that ever since he had acquired that gold badge and that white badge, he had not acquired a single extra badge despite the passage of 60 years. In addition, Linley discovered that the commanders he did in fact find were ones whom he couldn't take action against. Because, if they encountered solo experts, those experts were either too cautious or too strong. The other possibility was a team of 2 or 3 experts, or sometimes even 4. With them moving together, even if Linley and BB attacked and killed one of them, the others would make sure that Linley and BB wouldn't be able to flee. How did this death god golem end up being destroyed? Linley laughed. Boss, this time, we actually encountered hammers. BB said helplessly. How could we end up running into that big idiot again? Linley could only laugh bitterly. Be patient. The planar wars will go on for 1,000 years. As it goes on, the survivors are increasingly those who have certain abilities to rely upon. It won't be so easy to find someone to kill. What I hope for is that in the next 800 years, I'll be able to fuse a 4th profound mystery. At that time, I won't have much to fear. Linley knew very well that although he was fairly powerful, in reality, in terms of soul defense and soul attack power, he was inferior to other commanders. However, after he fused a 4th profound mystery, given his innate azure aura in his sea of consciousness, his soul defense would rise nearly tenfold, while his material attack would also increase nearly tenfold. By then, aside from a few people like Baruch, others wouldn't be capable of making Linley feel afraid. I need more time. Linley closed his eyes, his original body and his divine earth clone focused on training. But after just 3 months, Linley broke through. But of course, the breakthrough wasn't in the laws of the earth. Linley was still a long ways off from finishing his 4th fusion. This breakthrough was, in his divine wind clone. BB suddenly glanced at Linley. An enormous surge of the natural laws descended upon Linley, and a large amount of wind-type elemental essence began to swirl above him. From within Linley's body, yet another body flew out, one with long green hair and a green robe. His divine wind clone. Just then, Linley had finally, completely mastered a 9th profound mystery in the laws of the wind. Wow, boss, you mastered the laws of the wind as well. BB began to laugh. Yes, I've finished them. Linley's original body flew to one side. His elemental affinity for earth and wind were both exceptional, only, over the course of his training, he had favored earth more. Who would have imagined that of the four elements, wind would actually end up being his third slowest, behind both earth and water? However, he had finally become a high god. Now, only fire was missing. Not good. Linley's face suddenly changed. What is it, boss? BB was still feeling excited and happy at Linley's breakthrough. The descent of the natural laws. Such a major, noticeable event will definitely attract quite a few people. Linley said hurriedly. Linley was instantly frantic. Other commanders might come over while his divine wind clone's divine spark was in the middle of the transformation process, which made him temporarily unable to move, albeit for just a short period of time. But that short period of time was enough to allow other experts to come over. What is there to fear? BB's eyes actually lit up. If one comes, we'll kill one. If two come, we'll kill two. If we can't kill them, we'll flee. Linley couldn't help but feel helpless. Still, Linley immediately set up his blackstone space, which passed through the stones of the mountain, creating a hemisphere 500 meters in size. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 23, Three-Person Squad. Hopefully, no one will come. However, given how savage the commanders are to each other, I imagine they won't give up a chance like this. Linley said quietly in his heart, while at the same time, his body became covered by those azure golden draconic scales. He immediately dragon-formed. Mirage appeared in his hands as well. As for BB, he was by Linley's side. The two were prepared for a fight. The sudden descent of the natural laws was simply too obvious. Virtually everyone in the entire plane noticed it. A breakthrough? There's actually a god or demigod level clone in the planar battlefield. How bizarre. Can it be that someone actually brought his demigod or god clone into the planar battlefield? To bring a weak divine clone in instead of leaving it outside, this person is just throwing his life away. The descent of the natural laws means this person's position is exposed. 9 out of 10, that person will die. The planar battlefield was filled with discussions regarding this. Everyone in the planar battlefield should be a high god. The descent of the natural laws was a very bizarre occurrence here. However, because people were at varying distances from Linley, it was only the extremely close commanders who immediately flew at high speed towards the origin point of the descent of the laws. The cold, grim planar battlefield. A grey-robed figure was flying towards the mountain. This is a rare, superb opportunity. Perhaps I'll be able to acquire a badge. The grey figure flew at very high speed, but by the time he flew to the base of the mountain, he suddenly came to a halt. His form was revealed as that of a violet-eyed, grey-robed youth with long hair. He was currently staring at a nearby white-clothed figure. Benfield Benfearda of the Celestial Realm. Terrified, the violet-eyed, grey-robed youth's face changed. Benfield. That means his other two companions must be present as well. If they surround me, I'll definitely die. Since those two have come, that idiot in the mountain who actually brought a god-level divine clone into the planar battlefield definitely won't be able to survive. Not hesitating at all, the violet-eyed, grey-robed youth immediately retreated at high speed. He flew over, saw the white-robed figure, then immediately retreated. This process happened in an instant. The white-robed figure seemed to have felt something. He suddenly turned his head and saw the grey-robed figure disappear. The white-robed man let out a calm laugh. He ran fairly fast. The white-robed figure had long, silver-white hair. His face was as beautiful as a woman's, and his eyes seemed to contain the stars within them as he stared upwards into the sky. Swoosh! The white-robed man flew into the sky, towards the midway point of the mountain. Boss, we are already halfway up the mountain, close to the point where the natural law ripples descended. A deep voice echoed out in the white-robed man's mind. Elder brother, I arrived as well. A clear voice rang out in his mind as well. Right at this moment, suddenly, the natural law ripple suddenly weakened at a fast pace. The transformation upon breaking through was a fairly fast process. Clearly, Linley's divine wind clone's divine spark transformation had already concluded. We didn't make it in time for the best opportunity. The clear voice said discontentedly. Third brother, let's do it. The white-robed man gave the order. Ha ha, watch me. The white-robed man was less than 100 meters away from a black-armored man, who was standing there in midair. This muscular, black-armored man was nearly 3 meters tall, and he had a pair of thick, curved horns on his forehead. His hammer-like fists were covered with a crimson pair of gloves. The muscular man gave a low growl, bending as he suddenly smashed downwards with his fists towards the mountain. Soundlessly, the two giant crimson hammer fists slammed against the mountain. Rumble. Space itself trembled, and instantly, at the location where the two fist blows landed, a deep round crevice that was a meter in diameter suddenly appeared. A large number of shattered stones fell out from this new cave, and the entire side of the mountain cracked as well, as one savage-looking crevice after another appeared. The muscular man stared, then roared furiously, "Mother ***, break!" This time, he swung down with open palms, like two giant fan-shaped objects, smashing down upon the cracked mountain. Instantly, the upper part of the mountain, with a boom, completely crumbled, and countless stones of various sizes fell down from high above. The white-robed man, the black-armored man, and a red-robed, jade-haired woman stood there in midair. Linley hadn't imagined that the enemy would be so powerful. Almost as soon as he had collected his divine wind clone back into his body, such a terrifyingly powerful tremor had gone through the mountain, which actually shattered. Although it didn't crumble, the insides of the mountain were already damaged. The first blow had damaged the insides. The second blow seemed to have the power to shatter the heavens and the earth, causing the entire upper half of the mountain to completely collapse. What a powerful material attack! BB couldn't help but sigh in astonishment. I imagine this attacker has a sovereign weapon. The mountains of the planar battlefield were exceedingly tough, on a higher level than even the mountains of the netherworld and the infernal realm. To destroy half of a mountain was something which even most commanders would find difficult. However, they clearly are afraid to come in. BB snickered. Linley and BB didn't care about the crumbling mountain per se. Not only are they strong, they are cautious as well. They will be hard to deal with. Linley held Mirage in his hand as he watched the surrounding boulders come cascading down. As the mountain crumbled, Linley was able to see the outside world, and indistinctly, he was able to make out the figure of a muscular man who had two horns on his forehead. BB, let's flee. Linley hurriedly shouted through divine sense. Right. BB didn't hesitate either. Linley and BB flew directly towards the direction opposite from the muscular man, while at the same time Linley spread out his blackstone space. But just as they began to flee, Linley was shocked to find, there are two people on this side. Linley's blackstone space easily discovered that a white-robed man and a red-robed, jade-haired woman were standing on each side. The white-robed man, the jade-haired woman, and the black-armored man were situated in a triangle. No matter where Linley and BB fled, the three would still be able to attack in unison. The two of you, don't even think of running. The white-robed man swept them with a calm gaze. Although the blackstone space was applied to his body, the white-robed man just swayed slightly before counteracting the gravitational pull. Benfield. Linley's face was exceedingly ugly to behold right now. Linley never would have imagined that the person who had to stop them was actually the legendary Benfield. He would rather encounter Hemmers than encounter this Benfield. Because, Benfield was a supreme expert who was close to Baruch himself in power. Baruch's book had one bit of advice for someone who encountered Benfield: flee. Think of nothing else, just flee. BB, quick, flee towards that red-robed woman. Hurry, flee. Linley immediately made his decision. They had to break out from the direction of the red-robed woman, then escape. Got it, boss. I didn't expect it would be Benfield. What horrible luck. BB recognized him as well. Over the past 60 years in the planar battlefield, Linley had already provided BB with all of the information regarding the supreme experts through their spiritual link. Swoosh. Swoosh. Linley and BB were like two bolts of lightning, shooting towards the jade-haired woman. Humph, you want to flee? The white-robed man and the black-armored man flew towards the red-robed woman at virtually the same instant. Clearly, they wanted to join forces with her and to stop Linley and BB. Suddenly, Linley and BB changed directions, fleeing towards the original direction. The black-armored man, white-robed man, and red-robed woman reacted very quickly, hurriedly attacking towards and chasing after Linley and BB. Unfortunately, Linley had already spread out the blackstone space around himself. Upon entering the blackstone space, Benfield and the other two weren't able to catch them at all. They actually aren't willing to give up. BB turned to give them a glance. He couldn't help but feel frantic. This looks bad. Linley had a hint of worry in his eyes. This was because the white-robed man and the black-armored man had actually flown out of the blackstone space. They accelerated from the sides, seemingly planning to block Linley and BB from the front. Haha, third brother, second sister, watch how I'll block them. The white-robed man let out a loud laugh. His body moved as fast as lightning from the side, speeding past Linley and BB. And then, he suddenly charged into the blackstone space region, his body having transformed into white spots of light. Spots of light? No. It was multiple extremely thin white lines. Countless extremely thin white lines exploded forth from Benfield's body, appearing at first glance to be a dazzling radiance. Those countless thin white strands shot out from every direction, surrounding Linley and BB, giving them no way to flee. Linley and BB's faces instantly changed. BB, careful. A soul attack. Linley hurriedly sent through divine sense. Bastard. BB bellowed, and suddenly he flew out from the side. Behind BB, an enormous illusion of a god-eater rat appeared. BB's expression became cold and grim, and he stared unblinkingly at the black-armored warrior. At present, the black-armored warrior was less than 200 meters away, and he was charging towards Linley and BB. He hadn't imagined that BB had a supreme technique such as this. No. The black-armored warrior was badly shocked. He recognized this. This was Baruch's supreme technique. Not good. This is Baruch's innate divine technique. Previously completely confident, Benfield's face changed, and he called out nervously, "Second sister, protect third brother." BB's innate divine ability was simply too fast, and he wasn't able to stop it. He knew that right now, only his second sister was able to save his third brother. Unfortunately, the red-robed woman was currently a bit too far away. They were unable to communicate by divine sense, only by voice, but how could a vocal shout make it in time? However, clearly the red-robed woman needed no warning. She too knew that her third brother had encountered a dangerous situation. Not hesitating at all, the red-robed woman's body suddenly transformed. Rumble. Suddenly, the red-robed woman's body disappeared, and instead, an enormous crimson serpent that was more than 1,000 meters long appeared. When its coiled body appeared, it naturally was located in front of the black-armored warrior. Its enormous serpentine body easily protected the black-armored warrior's entire body. Rumble. BB's spiritual energy surged towards the enormous serpentine body, but it was unable to reach the black-armored man. Damn it, yet another one who has a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. BB sent furiously through divine sense. Linley, upon seeing this happen, had already guessed what the result would be. For the red-robed woman to dare act in such a way definitely meant that she was confident this would work against Bibi's technique. Otherwise, wouldn't it be as good as suicide? Bibi, quick, flee. Stop wasting time with them. Linley sent frantically through their mental link. Using his Blackstone space at full force, Linley hurriedly fled. Fighting against Benfield was a no-win proposition. Swoosh. Bibi hurriedly followed Linley in fleeing at high speed. Within the Blackstone space, the three weren't able to catch up to Linley and Bibi. Damn it, I thought that it was only Benfield who would be formidable, but who would have imagined that the two he brought with him are so powerful as well. That horned fellow's material attacks are very powerful, while that red-robed woman actually has a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. Bibi sent mentally to Linley, complaining. These three together, with the powerful Benfield leading them, boss, how are we supposed to fight against them? Don't even think of fighting. Flee, and be thankful if we are able to. Linley said hurriedly. The two fled at high speed. However, Benfield didn't want to let the two of them off. You too. The white-robed Benfield was now truly angry. He cared deeply about his little sister and little brother. Bang. Suddenly, a wild surge of energy blasted forth from his body, and an aura of light instantly appeared on his form. Benfield's speed suddenly increased dramatically. Whoosh. After charging into the Blackstone space, although Benfield's speed dropped dramatically, he was actually still faster than Linley and Bibi. Linley could clearly sense that this person was quickly catching up to them within the Blackstone space. He was actually faster than them. Linley turned to look, and was badly startled. Not good. This Benfield has gone crazy. For the sake of catching us, he's actually used up a drop of Fate-type Sovereign's Might. Book 19, Metamorphosis, Chapter 24, A Dead End. A New Beginning. Benfield's speed was far faster than theirs to begin with. Linley had the Blackstone space, but Benfield had used Sovereign's Might. Now, his speed was still faster than Linley's. If they just let him chase like this, in just a few hundred meters, they would be caught. Humph. Linley willed his Blackstone space to suddenly change. The repulsive force transformed into an upwards gravity. Benfield's body couldn't help but sway, and he actually shot upwards. My Blackstone space isn't as simple as that. Linley thought to himself. At the same time, he began to frantically change the direction of the Blackstone space's gravity, from up to down to repulsive. It must be understood that the power of this gravity was tremendous to begin with, and this sort of constant changing caused even Benfield to be affected tremendously. Benfield couldn't help but feel furious. All of you, die. Benfield's voice was icy. Whoosh. One translucent arrow after another shot out from Benfield's body, shooting directly towards Linley and Bibi. 10 translucent arrows sliced through the air towards Linley and Bibi. The speed of this soul attack was extremely fast. Linley and Bibi were only able to dodge very slightly, and 4 translucent arrows still shot into Linley's body. As for Bibi, his body was struck by 3 arrows as well. Shocked, Linley's face turned white. Bibi, use Sovereign's Might. Benfield's soul attack was described in the materials which Baruch had provided. It was extremely terrifying. Now that Benfield was using Fate-type Sovereign's Might to attack, one could imagine how mighty it was. Rumble, an earthen yellow aura instantly spread out from Linley's body. Without hesitating at all, Linley used his Earth-type Sovereign's Might. Within Linley's mind. Bang. 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 4 translucent arrows struck viciously against the translucent membrane, but shattered like eggs striking against a rock. After shattering, however, they transformed into a large amount of translucent threads which spread out to surround the entire translucent membrane. And then, a large number of threads coiled about, attacking the flaw. Countless invisible void wave swords shot out, clashing against the translucent threads. I have a soul-protecting sovereign artifact and used Earth-type Sovereign's Might, but the patch over the opening was still more than half broken through. Linley was stunned. Linley had rebuilt and repaired the patch over the flaw in his soul-protecting sovereign artifact after leaving the Abyssal Mountain. Including the 60 years they had spent in the planar battlefield, it had been nearly a century. 100 years of work was half-wrecked in an instant, and that was after Linley had used Earth-type Sovereign's Might. If he hadn't used Earth-type Sovereign's Might, he wouldn't have been able to resist at all. How terrifying! Without this soul-protecting sovereign artifact, even if I used Sovereign's Might, I probably wouldn't be able to endure. Linley's face suddenly changed. BB. BB had been struck as well. Boss, I'm fine. BB's voice rang out in Linley's mind. Linley discovered, to his amazement, that BB hadn't used his Sovereign's Might. However, somehow, BB had still been able to endure the blow despite not using Sovereign's Might. If he had only relied on a soul-protecting artifact, there was no way he should have been able to do this. Can it be that what BB has isn't a soul-protecting artifact, but a soul-protecting sovereign artifact? Or perhaps, BB's soul is very unusual and his soul defense is extremely powerful. This thought flashed through Linley's mind. Right now, however, he couldn't ponder it in depth, because things had gotten dangerous. Elder brother. A deep voice rang out. The black armored figure was currently standing atop the giant, coiling crimson snake, which was flying over at high speed. The giant crimson snake had already flown to the area in front of Linley and BB. Boss, the situation looks bad. BB said frantically. I know. Of course Linley knew the situation was bad. The front was blocked by the giant crimson snake and the black armored warrior, while Benfield was behind them. They could neither go forward nor go back. How is it that Benfield has two allies such as them? And they aren't even in the same alliance. Linley cursed angrily. In the course of his flight, Linley had discovered that Benfield and the other two weren't in the same alliance. Linley wasn't able to sense Benfield's badge's aura. Clearly, he was an enemy. But Linley could clearly sense the auras of the red-robed woman who had transformed into a giant crimson snake, along with the black armored man. Clearly, they were on Linley's side. People on different sides who had joined into a single squad. BB, follow me to flee this way. Hurry. Linley surrounded BB with his Earth-type sovereign power, flying at maximum speed. Linley and BB flew towards the side at high speed. By moving in this direction, Benfield wouldn't be able to attack them easily. The power of the Blackstone space had increased nearly 100-fold as well, and the terrifying gravitational power made it hard for Benfield to catch them. Swoosh! Benfield flew out of the Blackstone space. Within the Blackstone space, he wasn't able to catch up to Linley as well. You two punks, listen up. Today, Benfield, will definitely kill you too. Definitely. His furious voice echoed in the air. As for Benfield, he flew virtually parallel to Linley and BB. The two were separated solely by the Blackstone space. The red-robed woman and the black-armored man were frantically trying to catch up as well. We can't keep wasting time with this Benfield. Just now, he simultaneously attacked myself and BB, and I found it very hard to endure it. If he continues to entangle us and unleash powerful attacks, I won't be able to hold. Linley wasn't worried about BB, because BB had been able to endure the attack without using Sovereign's Might. Boss, we have to throw this guy off. BB sent mentally. I know. Linley suddenly turned to look at the nearby Benfield. Behind him, an illusion of an enormous coiling azure dragon that was 1,000 meters long suddenly appeared. The draconic head of the azure dragon hovered above Linley, staring at Benfield. In Linley's mind, his Earth-type sovereign power fused with his innate azure light, shooting directly towards the nearby Benfield. Innate divine ability, Dragon Roar. This innate divine ability, when used with Earth-type sovereign power, was extremely powerful. Benfield couldn't help but feel his body slightly stiffen. Quick, flee. Linley and BB hurriedly seized the opportunity to flee. Benfield was a supreme expert who was particularly skilled in soul attacks, and he also had a soul-protecting sovereign artifact and was protected by Sovereign's might. He quickly managed to throw off the restrictive bindings. You want to escape? Benfield saw Linley and BB's figures disappearing, and he hurriedly chased after them. As Linley and BB flew away at high speed, BB cursed mentally, "Boss, that Benfield really is annoying. He has a soul-protecting sovereign artifact and a defensive sovereign artifact. There's no flaw to attack, and he's hard to kill, while his own soul attacks are so powerful. He really pisses me off. I'm pissed too, but there's nothing we can do." Linley had expected that the breakthrough of his Divine Wind clone would arouse some interest, but he didn't imagine that it would attract the attention of someone as hard to deal with as Benfield. Benfield was definitely a perfect counter to Linley. He had two powerful sovereign artifacts, giving Linley no way to fight back, and he was also skilled at soul attacks. How could Linley deal with such a person? Even by using his innate divine ability, Dragon Roar, the only thing Linley could do was buy himself a little time for fleeing. "Damn it, boss, he's chasing after us again," BB said furiously. Linley turned to look, and saw a blurry form fly over at high speed. "This bastard really moves fast." Linley was extremely frantic right now, but since the two had both used Sovereign's might, there was no way he would be able to outspeed this person. "It seems the only thing I can do is use my innate natural ability, Dragon Roar, to stop him yet again." Linley mused to himself, but right at this moment, Linley suddenly discovered that two figures appeared in front of him. Only high-class commanders would dare to hover in the air of the battlefield. "This direction is closed off to you," a calm voice rang out. Linley and BB could sense the threat the person in front of them posed, and they came to a halt. Linley looked at the two of them and had the feeling that these two were no less dangerous than Benfield. The two were very odd. One was nearly 4 meters tall, his entire body a bronze color, exceedingly muscular and with a solemn, granite face. On the shoulder of this enormous, 4-meter-tall fellow, an adorable bald youth sat, chewing on some fruit. This youth was a size smaller than even BB. But this youth made Linley's heart tremble. "The two of you, please help stop them. I, Benfield, will owe you 2 for it," Benfield said hurriedly. Favors were hard to repay. Benfield's words caused Linley and BB's hearts to sink. Swoosh. Linley and BB fled towards another direction. Whoosh. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Linley and BB. It was the adorable bald fellow who was eating the violet fruit. So fast. Linley felt shocked in his heart. "Why are you in such a hurry to run?" The bald youth cracked his lips into a grin. Crunch crunch. With 2 bites, he disposed of the fruit, then tossed the pit to one side. "Elder brother." The red-robed woman and black-armored man finally arrived as well. "The two of you, don't even think of escaping." The red-robed woman stared angrily at Linley and BB. Linley and BB looked at each other, having a bad feeling in their heart. "Boss, 3 behind us, 2 ahead of us. If the 5 attack us together, there's no way we'll escape." Linley and BB didn't dare to move for the moment. Because, as soon as they moved, most likely the bald youth and the big fellow would attack. "Thank you, you two." Benfield laughed. Just now, the bald youth had blocked Linley and BB. Clearly, this made him feel as though he had been given face, but at the same time, Benfield also felt rather puzzled. "This youth and this big fellow, I've never seen them before. When did these two experts suddenly appear?" The movement speed the bald youth had displayed just now had caused Benfield to feel amazed. "Hey, Benfield, you got some problems with your brain." The bald youth began to laugh. Benfield's face couldn't help but change. Just because I stopped Linley didn't mean that it was because I'm helping you. The bald youth mocked. Linley. Benfield and the other two looked towards Linley. Up till now, they hadn't known who Linley was. You know me. Linley stared in astonishment towards the bald youth. The bald youth began to roar with laughter. Alas, it's only been a few years, but you no longer recognize me, your teacher. The bald youth let out an emotional sigh. Teacher. Linley and Bibi were both stunned. Suddenly, a violet light sprang out from the bald youth's body, instantly stretching to 1,000 meters, encompassing Linley and Benfield both. This powerful, yet familiar gravitational force caused a look of shock to appear on Linley's face. Can it be that you are, in Linley's mind, that adorable juvenile amethyst beast suddenly sprang to mind. That little juvenile beast who had called out in a high-pitched voice while pointing at and commanding countless amethyst beasts. And Linley himself had, under the torment of the juvenile amethyst beast, gained insight into the basics of the Blackstone space. You. Benfield frowned. Rice gem. Har har, yes, it is me. The bald youth laughed loudly. What, are none of you able to recognize me when I'm in human form? Oh, it makes sense, my control over my soul is too powerful. I can completely hide my soul's aura, and you aren't able to sense it at all. It is understandable that you don't recognize me. It is understandable. The bald youth waved his hand. Benfield, you turtle, hurry up and leave. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind playing a bit with you. Benfield stared at Linley and Bibi, then clenched his teeth. Let's go. Benfield had no choice but to swallow his anger as he led his two companions to fly away. Linley and Bibi both let out sighs of relief. Ricegem rubbed his bald head, glancing sideways at Linley. Shaking his head, he said, You are so useless. You learned my supreme technique, but were forced into such a sorry state. You really lost the face of myself, your teacher. Teacher. Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. And you two really are stupid. If your power is weak, then in the planar battlefield, you need to join forces. Didn't you see how so many people are in groups of 3 or 4? Ricegem said casually. How about this? The two of you, join my hunting squad. We'll join forces and roam about the planar battlefield. What do you say? Join your squad. Linley couldn't help but look towards Ricegem, as well as the big, towering fellow behind him. If you join us, in the future, we'll evenly divide the military merits we gain into fourths. We men should be straightforward and keep things simple. Ricegem puffed his chest out as he spoke, as though he wanted to show what a man he was. Linley couldn't help but laugh. Linley and Bibi exchanged glances, nodding slightly. We will join. Linley said. And so, Ricegem's hunting squad was expanded from 2 to 4. Their strength had increased tremendously now.